Hello, Ghoul Fiends, and welcome back to the Horror Ghouls podcast. I'm T,
I'm Megan.
and today we are celebrating Halloween.
That's why I have my Jason mask. Oh, I just put it side. Did you see that? I was like, "Merp." That's not how you wear a mask, everyone. And if you're listening to the audio, I'm sorry that you missed this stupidity that just occurred. I'm
Yes,
sorry.
she has her mask on. I have a lovely pair of ram horns on.
Beautiful pink. There's flowers, very
Yes.
midsummer.
Yes. So,
Yeah.
and I have a beautiful witch sitting in the background that you
Aw,
can't really see. She's in shadow because she's shy. But
yeah.
so yeah, we are celebrating Halloween, and fun fact, Halloween dates back over 2,000 years to the ancient Celtic festival of Samhain.
That's
Not
right.
It's not Samhain.
It looks,
Okay.
I always want to say Sam Hine, Sam Hain. It's not
Yeah,
though, but
Samhain. Yeah.
it looks like it wants you to say it like that.
It does, but
But
I
don't.
love that it's Samhain. But yes,
Yes.
it's Samhain where people lit bonfires and wore costumes to ward off ghosts. So now, Megan, do you know the origins of the jack-o'-lantern?
Oh gosh, I feel like somewhere in the file cabinet of my brain, there's something like I'm almost thinking because the thing with the Celts, right? The thing with the Celts is they love to have little superstition items to scare things away or ward things off or like bring something to them. And they always use kind of like an item for that. So I'm assuming it's going to be probably one of those things, but I don't actually remember. So if you wanted to tell us.
Well, so the tradition of carving pumpkins actually comes from an Irish legend about a man named Stingy Jack. And when he died, he was denied entry into both heaven and hell and was forced to wander the earth with only a carved turnip to light his way.
That's
So
right, the
that's how
turnip.
yep.
And it's a terrifying. Look up the freaking turnip, everyone. It looks.
Mm,
Did you see a picture of it when you were
I
reading about
have,
this?
yeah.
It looks nuts.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a little creepy.
Oh, those Celts. Gotta love them.
And
Yeah.
so, another thing, and I did not realize this. Do you know about the classic colors of Halloween and orange and black and why they were chosen?
No, that's something I definitely never knew.
And I never even thought about this, but because they symbolize Halloween with the orange representing the fall harvest and the
Mm.
black signifying darkness and death. So that is that's why I know, right? I was like, oh, I love
I was gonna say I
it.
was like something about death and like rot because maybe like orange is rot, but no, the black is the death and the rot. So
hmm
again, I'm so proud to be a descendant, right? They're so wacky. I love it.
Right?
Leprechauns, fairies, turnip heads. We got something for everyone,
I
right?
know. And I mean, I love that it's orange and black because, like there are new Halloween colors, like you could take purple and green as well.
Sure.
So, but I've always been an orange and black person, I've always loved those
Classic.
colors. Yeah, I'm a classic bitch when it comes to that. So,
We
you
don't say
know,
basic, we say classic. That's what
right?
we say. Classic. No, I really do like that. That's really interesting that it was. I didn't know that that was because you know how everything's been wildly commercialized,
Right.
right?
Ridiculously so.
Right. So it's like I didn't know if that was like the Hallmark Corporation decided orange and black, but it makes a
Right.
lot of sense. That's very interesting.
Yeah, yeah. Well, October isn't just about Halloween festivities,
No.
pumpkin patches, and sweet treats. It's
Mm-mm.
also a time when many fiends fully embrace their dark side and revel in all things spooky. And if you've joined us throughout this entire month of October, you will have noticed that we've served up a hauntingly delightful selection of classic horror films that are perfect for the season each and every week. And right now, we are going to present our final episode of Spooktober, one of the most iconic classics. This movie has been watched the most almost every Halloween for the most part. And so, what we are talking about is the wonderful Hocus Pocus, directed by Kenny Ortega and released in 1993. And So this movie is a staple of spooky season. It features the mischievous Sanderson sisters as they wreak havoc on modern day Salem. So grab your broomsticks or
Mm.
your vacuum cleaners and prepare for a blend of humor, nostalgia, and a touch of magic as we explore the enchanting world of Hocus Pocus. And of course, don't forget, you can watch this on YouTube or enjoy the audio only versions on Spotify, Apple, and Amazon Music. So
Yay.
let's get started.
I'm so excited. Let me ask you a question
Yeah.
real quick because you just mentioned this. If you have to go into the utility closet and grab something to fly on, what's your preferred? If there is in fact a vacuum cleaner, a broom, maybe there's some kind of mop, maybe there's, I don't know, a dust buster. Like what are you what are you picking?
I'm honestly, those mops that look like Swiffers, like a Swiffer mop.
Yeah.
I would probably grab that because I
Like
really like mopping.
the wet jet or just the dry version?
No, the wet jet, the wet
Okay.
jet. Because if I'm flying, I want to squirt it so that people think it's raining at the same time. So
But it's
yeah,
chemicals, surprise.
right?
I like
Chemtrails, yay.
that. From the Swiffer wet jet. I like that very much. Okay. Just
What are you going
curious.
with? What are you going with? I feel like you're a classic broom person.
I feel like I am too. I like the comedy of the vacuum, but honestly, I need a broom. And I'm gonna do a plug right now, really quick. Salem, Massachusetts. This is true. Not making this up. There is a craft store called The Witchery where you can actually make your own broomstick. Like
Mm,
everything they do like a class, they lead it. So it's not just your typical like bristly whatever they use for that, but it's you can
right.
put like dry flowers in it and dried kind of like herby things and all kind of charms and whatever. So if you're gonna make a broom, if you're gonna fly in a broom, if you want a broom in your house, that's where you're gonna go. Witchery Salem. Just want to throw that out again. Little plug for them.
Yeah.
While they're taking on water because it's the most visited place in October. And
Right.
we hope for the best and that everyone's holding up okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Is our resident Salem expert here, people.
I do have some Salem facts to share as we talk about this because much of this movie was filmed in Salem, Massachusetts.
Yep,
So,
yep,
and surrounding, not just Salem. But we'll get
yeah.
into that as it comes up. So, yeah, let's go. Let's take it away.
Yes. So our story begins with the iconic Walt Disney bumper of the 90s showing Cinderella's castle, instantly immersing us in a world of whimsy, magic, and adventure.
Hmm.
And the familiar, playful music sets the tone, drawing us into a tale of enchantment, darkness, and redemption, while the credits play and a silhouette of a witch is seen flying across the water, and a haunting little song begins to play by the witch flying. So it is 1963 in Salem, Massachusetts, which is a town shrouded in fear and superstition.
Did you say 1963?
I'm sorry, I'm dyslexic. 1693. Thank you.
I was like 1963. That looks pretty interesting for 1963. 1693. That makes sense. Okay, got
Yes,
it.
I am dyslexic. I honestly am. That is a true thing. So if I
That's
transposed
okay.
words or numbers, y'all, just saying,
We're
grant
gonna
me, grant me
we're
some
gonna
grace.
figure it out. It's okay.
So, in 1693, Salem, Massachusetts, Thackeray Binks awakens in a panic, searching desperately for his sister Emily. Now, a haunting melody, like I said, echoes through the woods, and he and his friend Elijah notice a strange smoke rising from the trees, and they immediately know that someone is casting a spell. So Elijah goes and rallies the villagers with pitchforks, while Thackeray rushes into the forest, fear gripping his heart.
And before we leave the scene, really quick, sorry, I have my first Salem fact.
Mhm.
This place where this was filmed is actually Pioneer Village. It's a place that still exists in Salem to this day. It's a living history museum. So those
Hmm.
structures that you see um, are recreations. They're not original, but they are made in the fashion of what things looked like around that time. and they do
Oh,
give tours, people in costume and things like that. I think it's open seasonally, but a real place that they actually got to use and work in. So that's pretty cool.
that is pretty cool.
Just want to add it. Go on, go on.
Yeah.
Tell us
It's always
more.
it's always nice to have original places though, so you can like
I
feel the
love it.
energy,
Oh
you
yeah,
know.
I agree.
Yeah. So Thackeray arrives just in time to see Emily being lured into an old, dilapidated house by three witches. Winifred, I'm reading. Sarah, Sarah, and Mary Sanderson, who are preparing a dark spell to drain the life force from innocent children to keep them immortal and young forever. Winnie, the oldest, opens their ancient spell book, chanting ingredients like dead man's toes, as Sarah and Mary dance and play mischievously in the background.
I
Really
love
not
that.
any help.
No, they're not, but I just love. So when I was little, and I just mentioned this before, because 1993, I was like, was that first, second grade, something like somewhere in there. Um, I loved Sarah and her playful energy. So I'm going around the playground like dead man's toes and dead man's toe, like a freak of nature. But very playful and very fun. And Winnie is way more like
Yeah,
get it together, right?
yeah,
While they're twirling around and doing whatever.
right. So Thackeray, with his heart racing, sneaks closer as the witches bite off their tongues and spit them into the bubbling cauldron to help make the spell, which it freaked me out. I didn't even look at it. I like closed my eyes
Yeah,
because I'm
they
like, yeah, I know. I was like, ugh, okay.
went.
Um, and so just as they're about to cast, well, they've already cast the spell, they've bewitched Emily already, but just as they're about to pour this liquid down her throat, Thackeray yells out no, jumping from his hiding place, and the witches are momentarily distracted. So, in an effort to save his sister, he like pushes the cauldron, it knocks over the witches, and he spills their potion all over, hoping to stop this dark magic from being used. And Winnie is enraged at this point, and she zaps him with a spell, like a little electricity zap. Like she was a human, like, you know, what's
I
that
love
called?
that.
Taser, a
Zzz.
human
A
taser.
human taser.
Yeah.
That would be a great power to have.
Right. Oh
Oh
my
my God,
goodness.
I want that.
All of a sudden I just saw like Voldemort, like
Zzz.
uh
Yeah,
ugh.
I
But
like that.
or oh, it was Emperor Palpatine. That's who I've seen from Star
Oh,
Wars. Yeah, him. That's who it is.
okay, I gotcha. I gotcha.
I love Emperor Palpatine. I would definitely be on the dark side. I would have always been for the Empire. But anyway,
Same. I
I
get you.
digress.
I know. That's
So
another movie, guys.
yes. So she zaps him and that sends him to the ground. He's wincing in pain. And so the witch is now undeterred, turn back to Emily. And apparently some of this liquid must have got into her mouth because her life force is radiating from her, glowing visibly as the sisters surround her. And they start slurping up her youth like it's ramen. Which is very interesting. And and
Yes.
so in an instant, after they've sucked all the life from her, they transform into younger, somewhat beautiful women. Okay. They're not super beautiful. I mean, Sarah is the youngest, and she's the most beautiful, but Winnie looks the same to me. Uh,
They do. Well, it's like it's like their little details. It's like
yeah,
they show kind of in the front, like more plain looking, a lot of gray hair happening, a lot of like faded
wrinkles and
clothes,
stuff.
wrinkles. And then so all of a sudden her hair is like very vivid and her makeup's very bright and
Hmm.
her beautiful and her dress is like so
Oh,
pretty, right?
yes.
It's very bright colors again and things like that. But she's just not a great looking lady.
No. And she knows that too, because when she
She
looks at
does.
herself, she realizes that she's not as young or as beautiful as she'd like to be. And calling her ugly is offensive. So,
Oh yeah,
you
she's
know,
not with that. But she's like, well, we're younger,
yeah,
I
good enough.
guess. That's fine.
So, still reeling from the spell, Thackeray calls them hags, which again enrages Winnie. And
Yeah.
she calls upon her book and finds a curse that will forever trap Thackeray in the body of a black cat. And I love the little spell that they were saying. I did not write it down, so I don't know what it was.
I know every word.
Um, well, please, by all
I'm
means.
not gonna perform it for you guys, but they start it, twist the bones and bend the back, and then they start chanting, and the chant is, I don't know if it's Latin or what it is or what I'm gonna conjure when I say it, but it's Ichida Capita Melica Mystica.
Oh, I'm glad you said that because those words were not on the screen
Mm-hmm.
for Amazon.
Ichida Capita Melica Mystica. I don't know what's going to happen now. We all may have been cursed. I don't know, but we're going to figure it out together. So that's okay.
Right? We're all friends here.
But yeah, but I mean, that was the thing. Like this movie for being a kid watching this is this what everyone was obsessed with like for years to come after this. So everyone's chanting on the playground, very creepy for teachers, I imagine. Everyone's
Probably
like,
so.
let's play witches. And it's like July. Well, you're that's like the end of school, but you get what I mean, where it's like, okay, that's not okay. Let's play
Right.
something else. Yeah.
Well, this spell that they chant traps Thackeray in the body of a black cat, so no one will recognize him, not even his own family,
It
unfortunately.
was very sad. Yeah.
Yeah. And so at this point, it isn't long before the townsfolk arrive and they hang the sisters for their sins, their dark legacies seemingly ending with their deaths. However, there is a curse that lingers that Winnie promised that they will rise again on one All Hallows Eve when a virgin lights the black flame candle. And we do see at this point that Thackeray is there at this moment, and he tries to like alert his dad that he's there. He's like jumping all around his dad and meowing, and his dad is like, "Bill, get away from me, beast!" And I'm like, "Oh, that is
It's
so mean."
I know it's so sad. And it's funny because Binks in this movie, he's sometimes a real cat. They use real cats in this movie.
Hmm.
And sometimes he's just like an animatronic puppet.
Animatronic,
And
yeah,
I'm pretty sure, I didn't validate this before, which I should have, but I'm pretty sure they used him in Sabrina the Teenage Witch later on sometimes.
I can see that.
Um,
Yeah,
Not like, because that's a bit later, but
yeah,
yes.
but the
But
animatronic
I
does
did
look
read
the
that.
same.
Yes,
They look very
and
similar.
his name is Salem.
Yeah,
So it works out. Salem the
yeah.
cat and Binks the cat. There we go.
And you know what? And this is a little off topic, but I don't know if you guys have ever looked online or watched YouTube videos of like old animatronics that have been like discarded over the years. That this is a it's if you're into that type of thing, it's very creepy because they show like if you ever went to like Epcot Center or even like if you went to a Chuck E. Cheese or someplace
Oh,
that had those type of animatronics, over time they like deteriorate and they show them like their jaws broken or like like some of the paint on their faces is missing, or people have raided certain places and stole parts of famous ones,
oh.
like taking their head or taking their arms, and it makes them look very, very crazy. Um,
That sounds like like when you were just explaining this to me, I've never seen it, but it gave me a chill. I'm like, that's like a
yeah,
curse. That's cursed imagery.
it's very, very creepy, and to be honest, it always runs along the same thing when people talk about abandoned like theme parks and things like
Oh
that.
yeah.
If you've ever gone there or not gone to one, but ever watched those type of movies
Have
or
you ever
shows,
broken into one?
right?
Yeah.
And so, I'm it's always good when people have preserved animatronics or used them for something else. So to hear that possibly this Binks animatronic was used for Salem is good because I would hate to see that animatronic go into ruin like the other ones that I've seen. But
Yeah, yeah.
you know,
I agree.
definitely look that up on YouTube if you're interested in seeing how they deteriorate or how people steal these parts because
Yeah.
it's weird.
That sounds crazy. I don't know if we've ever mentioned this before, but you just reminded me. So forgive me if this is a repeat, fun fact. But you know how I love puppets, right?
Hmm.
We love puppets. Or I'm not gonna speak for you, but I love them. So, Chucky, and everyone's
Yes.
like, yes, we know Chucky, thank you.
Yes.
The Crypt Keeper?
Yes.
The Crypt Keeper actually got to reuse Chucky's eyes.
Shut up. Now
That's true.
we have not ever mentioned that,
That's true.
but like next to Billy, the Crypt Keeper is probably my favorite puppet.
He is my favorite puppet.
Yeah.
Favorite. But yeah, he got his beautiful blue eyes, his baby blues, from none other than Chucky.
Wow,
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense. And again, that's great. We're repurposing animatronics,
Yeah.
which I mean, I don't care about Chucky, so they could repurpose everything and or he could sit in ruin forever for all I care. But you could tell I'm not a Chucky fan. But like to use his eyes for the Crypt Keeper is cool.
Yeah. And they're so beautiful. And
Yeah.
John Kassir did a great job with him, and we love John Kassir, and we're going to talk
Yes.
way more about him someday.
Yes, yes, we will.
Today is not that day, but someday we will.
Yes.
Yes.
So we, after the sisters have been hung and uh the spell and the curse has been laid out, we now go 300 years in the future to present day, which is not 1963, it is 1993. So it
1993.
is
Yes.
now October 31st, 1993, and Salem is alive with the Halloween spirit, children in costumes, laughter in the streets, and candy everywhere. And we start in a school where Miss Olin is finishing up the tale of Thackeray Binks and the Sanderson sisters, adding that on Halloween nights, you sometimes people can see a black cat guarding the old Sanderson house.
Mm-hmm.
But this is where we also meet Max Dennison, a very skeptical teenager who's just moved to Salem with his family from LA. And Max scoffs at this legend, declaring that Halloween is nothing but a candy crash cash grab. And it's, it's nothing major, it's not serious.
He's a hater. Long
Yeah.
story short. Also, I had such a crush on him. Like, it's probably weird for me to say now, as like my later 30s, that I'm like, this young 15-year-old boy is really cute. I was in elementary school, okay, and he was very cute, and I'm not sorry about it. And he's still kind of cute now, not gonna lie.
I'm
So
about to say, and he's older than we are, so it's fair.
it is, but now it'd be like, oh, that young boy is cute. Like, no,
Yeah. Now listen, I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but that gives Sarah energy because that's what she does. And so,
Yes. She's like,
which
phew.
I'll come back to that in my thoughts at the end. But I digress a little bit. So he goes on saying about it's just, propaganda basically. Um and his classmate Allison actually knows much better, and she tells him about Halloween's ancient roots, reminding him that it's a time when the dead are said to come back to life this one night and roam the earth. And the class breaks out into like clapping and cheering because of course Salem people are going to be excited about Halloween. It's their holiday apparently.
You bet. And also, fun fact, I don't know in the movie, but in real life, their mascot is a witch.
Hey, I
Their
mean,
police department logo has a witch on it. So does their fire department. It's on the
listen,
side of their truck. So I'm just saying,
lean into it.
they gotta
You gotta
so,
lean into it
some of the
sometimes.
residents are salty. They're like, stop, stop. And everyone's like, shut up. This is
Yeah.
our thing. So that's it.
And that's what that class was doing. They basically told
Yep.
Max to shut up because they all, including the teacher, they were like, "That's right, Allison, you tell him. Good job, girl." And Max is unimpressed with her facts, but in the most awkward, smooth moment I've ever seen in a child movie, the class is dead silent and he stands up with a giant piece of paper and his phone number written in the very corner of it. Like he couldn't have just ripped that off and gave her the piece of paper and said, why don't you call me? And then the bell
Uh,
rings and she stands up and kind of walks away. And it's clear that that was like really weird. And people were like, you have no chance. Like, guys, like,
no.
no chance.
You got no riz, my friend.
None
None.
at all. So he does kind of catch up with her outside of school and they have a quick conversation. She's like, "Oh, yeah, I know you're new." And she's like, "You don't really believe in Halloween, do you?" And he's like, "Oh, I don't really believe in it, whatever." And so, in an equally and much more smooth moment, she hands him a piece of paper and says, "Trick or treat," and walks off like Little Red Riding Hood with her red
Her little
little
cape,
cape on.
which is very cute.
I love it. And
I know.
so when he opens up the piece of paper, it's his phone number, which I was like, oh, she gave him a trick. I love it.
That
I
was a good
love
one.
it.
Also, this
Yes.
scene was filmed in Salem, Massachusetts,
Hey.
downtown Salem in the Salem Common. It's like a little park kind of in the midst of all of these historic kind of buildings and old homes. It's a little bit more in the residential part. So Salem proper today is when you drive into it, businessy, right? But when you get to the downtown, that's when the magic starts to happen. That's when you see these old houses and these old businesses and whatever. So Salem Common, um, I'm about to cough, pardon me, can be visited today. And then you'll be able to like match it up to the
Oh,
scene. Like when she
nice.
walks through it, you can still see it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty dope.
Hmm.
And it's beautiful looking. So,
It
to
really does look like that
yeah.
in fall.
See, and
All the
that's
leaves everywhere and like the wrought iron gates, and it's really beautiful.
I love that. Yeah.
I know.
So he again is played at this point, but he rides his bike off someplace else and ends up in a cemetery, and he meets the local bullies, Ice and Jay, who steal his shoes. Okay. um and they're bumbling idiots, but they definitely steal his shoes,
You know what's
unfortunately.
funny is when he first kind of rode through this scene and he wound up and like you can see them behind the grave, like the headstones, but I was like, are they laying on the ground? Because they looked like they were so low to the ground that I was like, the hell kind of weird shit is
Right.
that?
They're like, I just want to feel the earth. I'm grounding myself right now behind this headstone.
Like I get if you're crouching down, like I get it, but it looked like they were just flat on the ground, and I was like,
Yeah.
well, okay,
It's a
all
little
right,
weird. It's a little weird.
whatever you want to do, you know.
Right.
No.
Well, after they steal his shoes, he's very frustrated and he goes back home and retreats to his room, only to have his little sister Danny burst out of his closet dressed as a witch. And she does catch him in the midst of cuddling his pillow, calling it Allison, telling the pillow how soft it is. Um,
It's very weird.
it is very well because listen, I'm not gonna say you just met this girl because honestly, we don't know at what point this is, like how far into the
Right.
actual school year. I mean, obviously school starts in like August, September. So either he was there for that much time and has known Allison for that long, or he literally just got there, which by the introductions that he does later on, makes me think that he just got there like a week ago, maybe.
Yeah, he
Um,
seems pretty fresh to the scene. Even their house has like boxes still in it, like they're kind of still getting settled and
True.
whatever. His room is so cool. We see more of it later, like we only see a little bit of it, but you see there's like an extra staircase in his
I
room
about
that
to say
like goes up
there's
to like a
a
turret
loft or something.
kind
Yeah,
of.
it's literally
Um,
some levels to this shit.
it's yes, it's a really cool room that I've always loved. And it's not the same, but I'm gonna say like if any of you ever watched Hey Arnold, we were all very envious of Hey Arnold's room. It was awesome. But the house that he goes to that he lives in, another Salem property, still exists today. It is residential and they get a lot of annoying traffic with people like
Mhm.
standing on their property to take pictures. So if you go there, don't do that, but do take pictures from across the street. That's okay. But it
Yes.
is a beautiful house and it's just steps away from um the water, just like this bay in the Atlantic Ocean. So it's
Oh,
very cool
nice.
and it's still white and everything. Like it looks in the movie, which is really cool.
I'm very interested to know if you know about the house later on, but when we get there, I'll re-ask about that other house because, yeah, I'm sure you do. So, um, Max is upstairs with his sister, and she's like, "Look, you gotta take me trick-or-treating. Mom and Dad are going to a party tonight, and you've done it all the time, so you're going to do it again this year." And he tries to fight it, but she smooth talks him into it by yelling for their mom very loudly, which means
Yeah.
yeah, which means mom has decided that he's going to take her.
Hmm.
So they go out, and Max quickly finds himself surrounded by goblins, goons, and of course, Ice and Jay, who are practically stealing candy from babies. Um, they
They're
try
so
to,
lame. Like,
yeah, like them and their group, they're trying to shake Danny down for her candy, but she's unfazed, and she's like, I got my big brother Max with me, not realizing that he's already had a run-in with these bullies.
yeah.
And so I thought this part that would be cute, so I left it in because I said if I don't say this part, you're gonna say it anyway. They they ask Max if he's the new kid on the block. And I was like, oh Donnie.
I do love the New Kids on the Block. It's
Yes.
true.
I was like, I have to
Um,
leave that.
yes. I mean, they're not from, Boston,
Right.
not from
Boston.
Manchester or Jamaica Plain or Dorchester, where Donnie Wahlberg is from.
Hmm.
I watched a lot of clips. It's okay. It's fine. But yes, it's I think that's cute.
Yes. So they ask if he's the new kid on the block, but Danny chimes in really quick. She's like, he's supposed to be a little leaguer, which was embarrassing.
Oh,
I mean,
brutal.
yeah, that was he's 17, I believe. And she's
Something like
8.
that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so that is a very embarrassing thing, but she meant no harm when she said
No.
it. But
She's very sassy and very
Yeah.
like a very strong little thing, but she thought that was like cool still, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't
Yeah.
cool. No.
For your information, he's a little leaguer.
They were like,
Okay.
oh,
They're like, how
okay.
cute.
Mm.
Um, so, not wanting to avoid any more trouble, Max hands his candy to the bullies and hurries off with Danny. And once they get away, Max snaps at Danny and he says some really mean things to her that make her cry and run off. So he does realize that he's gone too far, though. And he apologizes and vents his frustration about not wanting to be here anymore. He wants to go back home to LA to his friends. But Danny has some surprising wisdom. And she was like, I need to remind you, this is your home now. So you need to get used to it.
Mm,
And I think that really just like strikes a chord with Max. And he's like, okay. And he asks her for another chance, and the siblings do reconcile. So that's very
precious.
nice. Yeah.
Yes. Love it.
So the pair soon find themselves at a very fancy costume party that
Mm.
happens to be at Allison's house. And the atmosphere is straight out of the 1800s or 1600s, whatever. The period appropriate outfits, the flickering candelabras, there's some streamers hanging. And
Yeah,
this is the house that I was curious if you knew, because when I
me
saw it,
too.
I was like, this is a beautiful, like so beautiful house. If you like these type of houses, I find it to be beautiful with like the long staircases and the loft up top, and it's just so tell me about this house.
So, first of all, I just want to say, Allison's dress.
Oh,
Ever since I was little, I was just like, I want to dress like that. It's so
yes.
beautiful. So I'm not sure. I don't think the inside of the house is the same
Mhm.
as the outside of the house. I think that that was they shot the outside, but they used a different internal house. Also, it looks to be the same staircase that's used in some of other movies, such as Scream. I'm
Ah.
pretty sure if you check. But the outside of the house, which is in Salem, is it's the Ropes Mansion. It is still there. It still looks like that.
Oh.
It's owned by the Peabody Essex Museum.
Mm.
I believe you can take tours of it. I never have. I've just taken tours of the outside, and the garden in the back, which is beautiful. But what they do sometimes around Halloween is they do decorate it just like it was in Hocus Pocus with the hay bales in the
Oh,
front and the lights in the windows and the pumpkins.
that's beautiful.
Um, I actually took a picture. I have a thing. I don't like to smile in pictures. I just don't. I feel like I get like the puffiest cheeks like a chipmunk, so I just am always like RBF, right? So I've been the last few years to Salem, not in October, but I went to see the house and I just got up to the front and there's kind of a candid picture of me where I kind of am looking over my shoulder and I have the biggest, just most genuine smile on because not only is it Hocus Pocus, but the house is just incredibly beautiful.
Yep.
Um,
And I think I know what picture that is now. Like as soon as you start saying that, I'm like, oh yeah, that is a
it's not the witch house, which is not
no.
in pictured in this movie, but the big white beautiful mansion. And you can just everyone always goes there. Everyone's pretty good about taking pictures too. They let you wait your turn and no one's fighting over it and um it's beautiful. So highly recommend. They do actually have a walking tour in Salem for Hocus Pocus filming locations.
Oh, that's
That's the
nice.
tour that you could take, or you could hire me to take you because I know everything is too. And I'm very cheap. I'm just kidding. I'm not. It's very expensive. Just kidding.
Well,
Um,
she does know quite a bit. So, if you want to hire her, call.
you can. I do know where everything is, but it really is a beautiful house. I always wondered that too about the inside, but then I'm pretty sure I read somewhere that that was just they used the outside and the inside was more like a
Like a
set
set
or a
design.
home they used for like probably like in LA or something for multiple movies because I think it's been used in more than one. Um, Scream, maybe one of the Halloweens. Have to look into that, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Now I'm looking.
the Ropes Mansion. Also everything in downtown Salem is pretty walkable. So it's funny. It's like you're going down this one side of the street where there's all these like little stores, and then you just cross over, and pretty much right next to each other are two enormous historical houses. And they kind of
Mm.
stand out because they're in the midst of all of these other like more regular buildings, kind of. So it's a stark contrast, but it's very pretty. But yes, I
Okay.
agree. I love that house. It's beautiful.
It's gorgeous. And so I
Hmm.
did look, and so the house in the original Scream was not used in Hocus Pocus. However, the house in Hocus Pocus was used in Matilda, Catch Me If You Can, and Scream 2.
Okay,
And that house is the Omega Beta Zeta sorority house in Scream 2. And that is the same house that's used as the interior of Allison's house.
there you go.
Um, and the home is known as the Crank House or Fair Oaks Ranch, located in California.
That
So,
makes sense then. So like when they went to do things for the actual on sets, they did those in California, but all of the things that they shot in Salem, um, it was a lot of more like facades, but the internal shots were in the California whatever like studio. It wasn't Disney at the time, was it?
yeah,
Was it? Okay. Yeah, yeah. So in whatever Disney Studios sets that they built or whatever resources they had over there.
yep. Okay.
Very
Well,
cool.
that's very interesting. Fun facts for you. All
Yeah.
right. So they're at the party and it's very Bridgerton, but not like these Bridgerton parties that have been flopping lately. And um and so Allison is like, "Hey, I really love your outfit, Danny," because she was dressed as a witch, and she tells her how she likes it. And they have a little moment talking about the Sanderson sisters. And at this point, Max is like, "Well, hey, you know, can you take us to the house?" Because Allison says that her mom used to work in the house because it's a museum, and she used to like do tours basically. And so
My dream job,
Allison,
by the way. That'd be
right?
my dream. This is not a real house, by the way.
Okay.
Their
Well, that's
house.
good to know.
Yeah, yeah. No, because it's like I would want to live inside of it, right? I
Yeah.
know we haven't gotten there yet, but that would be really cool. To take something like that and make it a museum. Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with it.
So at this point, Allison is like, "Let me change my clothes out of my dress." And she puts on some different clothes and they go to the Sanderson house. And when the trio steps inside this eerie old house, curiosity just kind of guides them through. And Allison gives them a tour, pointing out various artifacts. And she does point out the infamous spell book of Winifred Sanderson. Um, and while, this whole time they're looking at things, the atmosphere is getting heavy, but also they're being watched by a 300-year-old black cat as
Mm-hmm.
well. And so Max's attention is drawn to this mysterious object, the black flame candle, and it is a relic said to resurrect the Sanderson sisters if lit by a virgin on Halloween night. Disregarding any warnings, Match reaches for the candle, but before he can light it, Binks pounces on him, scratching and hissing him like trying to stop the inevitable. And even though Max does stumble back in shock, and Danny and Allison both tell him, like, "Yo, it's time to go," it's too late because Max defiantly ignites the candle and he dismisses it as nothing more than hocus pocus.
Mm.
um, and so the instant this flame catches, though, the room trembles, the candles flicker and blow out. Not the black flame candle, that one stays lit, but other ones go
Mhm.
out, and the air grows thick with, a ghostly green glow seeping from the floorboards. And we know at this point the Sanderson sisters have been resurrected.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the witches emerge from the shadows. They basically open the door. They're delighted to be back home. And Winnie does wonder right away, like, who lit the black flame candle? But it's not long before Mary, whose special power is sniffing out children, picks up Danny's scent and they find her hiding spot. And Danny is very witty. She's quick on her feet and she's like, "Hello, I've been waiting a fortnight for you," whatever she said.
That's very funny.
She said, "'Tis I that lit the black flame candle." And so they were very amused by her bravado, but they
Hmm.
still prepared to feast on her life force.
They sure did. One
Yeah.
of the things I liked about this sequence is just Sarah's silliness again. When she comes back into the house after being resurrected, her arm shoots up at a weird angle and she's like looking on the loft and she's like, "Oh, my lucky rat tail." Like she's very excited. She's like, "Oh," and she's like holding it and like, I don't know, she's
Of all
very
things, she's a very interesting one because for her to be the pretty one out of the group. She is the one that is the most grotesque. She has a rat tail. She eats spiders. She's very gross.
That scene always makes me laugh too, like later in it, and it's whatever because it's very minute. But she's like they're hiding behind a bush and whatever. I imagine you probably skipped over this at some
Yeah.
point because it's not important. Okay. Um, and they're just like trying to figure out a plan, and she's like, "Ooh, a spider!" And then they're talking, and she's just like,
It's crunching on it.
just
I'm like,
eat
oh my God.
it.
Like, was it tempura spider?
It
Like,
was deep fried, delicious spider. I think she actually found more than one because then she's just like,
yeah, she had a couple. I'm like,
she's
oh,
like, I'm so hungry. But yeah, no,
right?
I just, like I said, her silliness has always been like, I don't know. I've always enjoyed her comic relief. Yes.
Yeah. Well, so the witches start to close in, and just like we saw 300 years ago, Max shouts out to protect his sister. And Winnie zaps him, just like she did to Thackeray 300 years ago, sending him crashing to the floor. And it's at this point that Winnie is really like, hey, I still got it. And she's really giving it to him. Like she's going to kill Max because
Oh
that's her
yeah.
plan.
She's taking him
And
into the wall and back to the
yeah.
floor and
And
yeah.
she's lifting him up into the air. And honestly, it looks like she's going to disembowel him because he's holding on to his stomach.
Yeah.
Um, and Allison, in a moment of bravery, bonks Mary over the head with a cast iron skillet, while
Yeah.
Danny decides she's going to hit Winnie and Sarah with her candy bag. And this breaks the spell with Max. And not to be outdone, Thackeray also gets in and attacks Winnie long enough for Max to trick the witches using the house's sprinkler system as a distraction, saying it's like hellfire that's going to burn them to death, the
The
death
burning
fire.
rain of death, he said.
Yes. And so
I love.
it was cute because
Yeah.
they were like, we can't move. He
They
has the
reacted
book.
like, yeah, they reacted like, oh my God, like what? And then they were like,
It's
oh,
just water.
right. And then Sarah's like,
Ooh, yeah, right.
she's just standing there like, what? She's always spaced out like in another place,
She's
right?
definitely a space cadet.
She is. Yeah.
100%. So Binks, and I do interchange Binks and Thackeray. I probably at this point will only say Binks until the very end of this. So if I switch back and forth, Thackeray and Binks are the same person. Because if
AKA cat. When we say person,
right,
we mean cat.
yes,
Yes.
yes, cat
Yes.
person.
Cat person.
So Thackeray like tells Max like, hey, get the book. And Max is like, shit, you could talk. He's like, yeah, we could talk about that later. Just get the book. We gotta go.
Right.
So Max gets the book, and Binks leads them to the cemetery where he kind of gives them the rundown, telling them about the Sanderson system sisters, and he explains about this one grave where Billy Butcherson is, and
Hmm.
that is the former lover of Winnie, who she poisoned because he was in love with Sarah, to be quite honest. Which you kind of tell, you don't know this right now, but you can tell it later on that he must have really, he's enchanted by Sarah. Let me not say he was in love with her because Sarah's a whore, but but he
Is
definitely
it
was.
is it weird that I idolized her then as a child? That I was like, I want to be just like Sarah.
No, because I don't think as a child you don't think that she's a whore. As a child, you think she's playful. She's fun.
Yeah, but then you also see her with all the boys making comments that you're like, I want to be like her too. So,
And
so.
again, I'm going to reserve all that for the end, but yeah, there's that. But Winnie is pissed off that, Sarah is the pretty one and Billy wants her. So she poisons him to death and then sews his mouth shut so he can never tell their secrets. So that's unfortunate.
I get it.
But right. But so it at that point, let me see. Oh yeah, it's not long at this point before the Sanderson sisters decide, oh, we can actually go outside. We don't have to be stuck here.
Right.
They do have a moment where they're a little worried about some fire engines and things, but
Yes.
they do arrive to the cemetery on their brooms, but they can't touch the ground because the earth is hollowed. And so thinking quickly, Winnie casts a spell to awaken her dead lover Billy and commands him to chase the kids and retrieve the spell book that they have. So Max, Allison, Danny, and Binks go into the Salem crypt trying to outrun Billy and the witches.
Who I
Um,
love, by the way. The minute
uh,
he wakes up, the very moment he does, right? And he sees Winnie, he's like, ugh. Like
mhm.
visibly he's like, but his mouth is sewn shut, right? So he like kind of waves her off at one point, but he still takes off after the kids, like seemingly like
Yeah,
begrudgingly. But he does do it, but it really is so funny that I think it was Sarah too, that she's like, "Hi, Billy," and
yeah, and that's
he's
what I'm
like,
saying. At that, it's that moment where you know that he actually kind of liked Sarah much more
Right,
because
right.
he definitely gives her the oh, she's so pretty. And then as soon as Winnie talks, he's like, ugh,
Well, she's also being really nasty to him for no
she
reason. She's
is.
not like, "Can you do me a favor and go chase these kids?" She's like, "Billy, wake up, go do the thing." And he's like, "Ugh,
And
this
she's
bitch."
and she's
Yeah,
also the one who killed him and put him there. So
that too. That's a good point.
yeah.
Yeah,
And this actor is Doug Jones. I love Doug Jones.
he's
If
so good.
he plays in so many other things, he's in Hellboy, if you didn't know. He plays in Star Trek Discovery. He also plays in that movie. Well, I want to say I listen. It's a movie where he plays like this waterman and he's in love with some woman or whatever. He's like a fish man.
Oh yeah, yeah. I can't think of the
Yeah.
name, but I know what you're talking about.
Me neither, but for whatever reason I'm getting this is what the title is coming out in my head for water for chocolate elephants. Now these are like two different movies that I'm mixing together and I can't figure out
It's
which
definitely
one.
not because what I definitely know that Water for Elephants is a movie,
Right.
but it's like,
Where'd the
oh
chocolate
gosh,
part come in? There's another movie that has chocolate in it, and I'm like, but I
Willy
can't
Wonka and
remember
the
the
Chocolate Factory.
it ain't that, but I don't know what it is. It might
No,
be
but I don't.
chocolate, but
Just mixed it up so many movies. No, I love that. I know what you
yeah,
mean though. It's like
yeah,
this, it was like a weird love story between this
yeah,
lady and this like fish creature,
yeah.
but I
And
don't know
so
the name. I can't
I
think of
can't
the
remember
name.
the name either, but I mean, Doug Jones, I absolutely love him. He plays a lot of characters that you probably don't realize because he's so tall and lanky. And he's a
Yeah.
very good, like, if you watch him in this movie as he's chasing the kids, he's very, like, physical. He moves around really
Oh yeah,
funny.
he
And
does.
yeah, he gives a great physical performance almost every time. Even if you watch, like, I watch Star Trek Discovery and he
Yeah.
plays like a first officer there and he walks like really lanky looking. I love it. I love him in Hellboy. I'm a Doug Jones fan. So
He's really awesome. And it's what's interesting is he has one of those faces like his destiny was to do what he does because his
yes,
face, and I mean this in a nice way, I'm trying to find a way to explain it, that it's like
it's
plain.
moldable. It's very
Yeah, that was
moldable.
literally the word in my head. Like it's very moldable, so they can put things on to like make it to kind of like I don't know, like almost like kick out some of the features and like make it bigger or change it. So it's
Yeah,
like I said, I mean it in the nicest way. But
he's an attractive man, but his face is pliable. Like his look is very malleable. You can
yeah, yeah,
change it
yeah.
around.
He's really
And
awesome.
yeah, the name of that movie is The Shape of Water. Okay, so I
What
knew it
and what
had
did you
water.
say? You
I
said
said water for
water.
chocolate elephants.
I wow.
Ah,
I like that. I mean, I want to watch that movie, Water for
yeah,
Chocolate Elephants, but um that's very interesting. I
yeah.
I will take the opportunity also while we have talked about Billy in this scene. This cemetery is not in Salem, but it's very close by. It's in Marblehead, Massachusetts, and it is actually called, just as the sign says, Old Burial Hill.
Mm,
That's the name of the cemetery. And it's a real
okay.
historic cemetery. It does contain graves of people involved with the Salem witch trials and things like that. And it's beautiful. It's about like 15 minutes from Salem, but they did that's a real filming location they used.
Well, I
Little
hope that
fun fact for
they
you.
were respectful there. I always feel a way when people are like doing things like this in a cemetery or a place that like has the remains of people,
Yeah,
you know,
I get
because I think
that.
you have to be very careful to be respectful. That's
I
just me.
do. One of the things, so there's a little cemetery they did not use in this movie, but just exactly to that point. It's called Charter Street Cemetery. It is right in Salem downtown, and it gets so much traffic, especially during the fall, where you actually have to book time slots and you can only stay on the path because that amount of traffic, you could cave things in, there could be headstones falling over, and they take a lot of care to preserve them. Um, But also, just like you're saying, I would hope that anyone visiting that kind of cemetery would be like respectful. But it's hard
Yeah.
because all those there's so many scenes that they're doing, they're like running around and stuff where
Right.
it's like I get like
Yeah.
it's their end result was beautiful, but also like maybe they said something like a little like, hey, hey everyone, sorry, this might be annoying and please don't follow us home. And, maybe they did a little something, something before or after. Maybe.
Right.
I
Who
don't know.
knows?
We don't know, but
Yeah.
hopefully.
Yeah. So, again, Binks leads the kids into the Salem crypt and tells them the crypt will lead them through the sewers and back up eventually to the streets. So that's where they are. And even though the witches cannot pursue them there, they do continue chasing them just because they are still wanting to smell the children. They still want to eat the
They
children. And
want to smell the children.
yeah, their thirst for youth still remains
Sure.
unchanged. And so they eventually board a bus. Which is very interesting because there's a lot of flirting going on with the bus driver and the witches. And he's like, he doesn't care who it is for real in the very
He's
beginning.
creepy about it too.
He
Like
is, he
his like weird
is.
comments. Just, mm,
It's very, very odd. But in the
yeah.
end, of course, Sarah gets to sit on his lap. But just as the kids and Binks are coming out from the sewers, like I said, Sarah sitting on the bus driver's lap, runs over Binks. And the children think that he's been killed.
Yes.
And but Binks quickly reinflates himself, reassuring them that he's okay. And he checks on Danny because he feels a connection to her, probably because she reminds him of Emily, his
Yeah.
sister. And I love the connection that they have, honestly, because you do see him like very, very protective of Danny, which is cute. It's sweet.
Yeah, no, it's very sweet.
Yeah. So Mary finally picks up on the scent of children and they get off the bus. However, she's confused because she's like, I smell children, but I don't see any children. And that's because all the kids around are in full costume, so they can't see the children's faces. But just as Mary's like, oh, I've lost my powers and everything, and they're like, Winnie's like, what would mom say? And they're like giving homage to their
They're
mother
like,
up in the sky.
mother. Yeah,
Right,
they have their brooms.
who
Yeah.
must be the supreme. Um,
I always think this is so weird, guys, but I'm always thinking Taco Supreme when I hear Supreme. I know, like American Horror Story Coven, we talk about Jessica Lange. She's the Supreme. I get it. I'm thinking about Taco Bell every time. I'm sorry. I don't know. I
that
don't know what my
sounds good
problem
right about
is.
now. That sounds
Right?
good. I would take some
Right?
tacos. So
The Horror Ghoul, sponsored by Taco
Taco
Bell.
Bell. Ding.
Live Moss.
Yes.
Hmm.
So as they're raising their broomsticks into the air, a man in the background dressed as the devil is like, hey, and they turn around and they're like, master, because apparently the devil is their master.
Yeah.
And he plays along with them. He's like, oh, Sanderson sisters, I haven't seen you in like centuries. And he invites them into his house, only to at some point be kicked out by his wife because
Yeah.
Sarah was being Sarah, per usual. Okay.
Yes. They were dancing around. Yep.
Yes. So meanwhile, the kids and Binks run into who they think is a cop, and they start trying to tell him like what was going on. And Max resurrected the Sanderson sisters, and Danny tells him, and he's a virgin. And the cop gets off the bike, and he's like, "Are you really a virgin, kid?" And Max is like, "Yeah, do I have to tattoo it on my forehead?" Like, "Yes, I'm a virgin." And the cop then is like, "Get out of here. Like I work hard to protect this city. Get away from me." And he like pushes them away. He's like, "Take that cat with you too." Only for him to get back on the bike and surprise, it's Halloween. He's not a real
Right.
cop. His
No.
girlfriend comes out of the bar and gets on the back of his bike and they ride off. And he's like, huh, they thought I was a real cop. And, it's very interesting.
Yes.
I
It's
thought it
funny.
was a good scene.
Yeah.
Um,
But
so
like
yeah,
when kids run up to you for help, like you don't even try to help them. You just like mess with them.
right,
That's
right. And not
like,
only that,
wow.
he takes the time to get off his motorcycle and he's like, come here, let me talk to you for
Yeah,
a
get up
second.
on the sidewalk, up on the
He's
sidewalk,
like,
right?
so you lit the black flame candle? And Max is like, yeah. He was like, you're really a virgin? And he's like, yeah. He's like, seriously? And is at this point, I'm like, if this was a real cop, that would be so weird.
Yeah.
So weird and
Yup.
creepy. You know what I'm saying? But He wasn't. He was probably somebody who deals drugs or something.
Not
So
for not for nothing. Even as just a strange man,
it's
that's
still
weird.
weird. Yeah, it's
It's
still
weird to
weird.
get in a kid's face and ask those questions, or anyone's face, but specifically a child.
With a
So
strange smile on your face.
and
Because
he's like, really?
it was almost humorous for him. Like, serious kid, you're like almost an adult. You should have gotten some by now. Which again, I'm gonna talk about that at the end of this movie. But uh so at this point, Winnie starts to piece everything together after they're kicked out of the master's house. She realizes that the man dressed as the devil is not master, the kids are just in costumes, and that All Hallows Eve has been bastardized into a commercial holiday where people just dress up, have fun, and eat candy. And so now she's like, okay, I know what game they're playing. I'm going to play this game back.
Hmm.
So the kids now make their way to the center of town where Max and Danny's parents are attending a Halloween party. And this is a big festival. Like there's a bunch of people there, a bunch of parents
Oh
apparently.
yeah,
There's a band playing, they're playing great music. And the kids do see their parents. And Danny tries to tell the mom, and Max tries to tell the dad, who the dad is dressed up as Dadula. Okay, Dracula,
Dadula.
Dracula, and the mom is dressed up as Madonna very inappropriately.
The
Uh,
very like early, well, that was probably like early 90s, wasn't it?
it was
Like the
probably
blonde,
1993 to be quite
yeah,
honest,
yeah. Like
with
the
the
blonde
comb.
ambition tour, the giant cones that she would wear, where she had that really tight pony.
Yeah,
Back in the day, back in
yeah,
the day.
right, right.
That's funny.
Where she expected her 8-year-old daughter to like get it. She's like,
Yeah,
I'm dressed as Madonna.
she was like, who are you? She's like, Madonna. Like,
Of course, like,
Um, this is another beautiful old building in Salem. This actually was filmed on the inside, I have been told. And if it's wrong, then we have to sue the tour guide who told me this. Um, Old Town Hall used to be the town hall. That's why it's called Old Town Hall. It was filmed inside, so like everyone was in there, like Bette Midler was in there. It's right on the main pedestrian drag if you're walking down the street on Essex Street in Salem, Massachusetts. I take pictures of it every time I'm there. It's a beautiful building, supposedly also very haunted.
ooh. Can people go inside?
Um, yes. So you can't take tours of it, but it's actually, they use it for like events and like flea markets and stuff. You could just like,
Oh,
a lot of the buildings, in Salem, if you believe in this type of thing, are haunted. And a lot of them are still open and people live in them or work in them and they just are regularly haunted and hear strange sounds or see things and they just go about their day because they're making money or living their life? So
I immediately I'm going to hell, guys, just so you know. I want you to know that right off the bat. So don't feel bad for me when I say crazy things. But as she's telling me this, that they're having like bazaars and flea markets and stuff, I imagine Jesus coming in and being like, "Get out of my house," because he did that in the Bible when the Pharisees were like selling stuff in the temple or something. So I just imagine like him coming in and like the ghosts that are there, like, "You're in the wrong story, Jesus." Like, I don't know
there,
why I thought of that, but that's what
I
came to
think there,
mind.
I think there is a Salem Jesus.
Is there?
You know what there is? There's a Salem Satan.
Well, that makes sense.
So, real quick, guys, and I think, I don't know, maybe you learned something about Salem while you're listening to Hocus Pocus. They have a lot of buskers. So buskers, like street performers. Um, one of them, or one of the things that attract types of people that's attracted to Salem are like those like evangelical
Mhm.
megaphone, like the end is nigh, the signs repent or whatever, you're all sinners, blah blah. So one of the buskers I love so much, is the Salem Satan, and it is a street performer who stands nearby those people, and he doesn't say anything, and he doesn't have any kind of confrontation with them. He just stands nearby and he just has a sign that says free hugs from Satan. So while these people are scaring you with their megaphones and their doom and fire and brimstone, he's just there to give hugs. And I love that for him. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of interesting people in and around that area. But I think it's also that building, just like you're saying, they're selling things, but I think it's also used for just like community space, um, like meetings and
Probably weddings and stuff like
gatherings.
that. Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's like more like a business space now.
I
like
mean,
it's
I could still
separated
see
into.
somebody do it though. You
They
know, if you
probably
just
could.
want the spooky vibes.
There's there's so many places to get married that are spooky vibes in Salem. And if we want to do a, if you guys ever want to know, like, where can I rent if I want to do a party? I know all of that. You could ask us. That's not one of the places I see for that, but probably if it's someone really wanted to, but there's places that they are already set up for that. That they're like have a party planner that they could make it
Mhm.
very beautiful. Actually, people sometimes get married in the Ropes Mansion garden, and that's Allison's house from before. So
Oh, okay.
just
Nice.
little fun facts for you sprinkled in here. I think that's our last building. Oh no, there's one more.
Okay.
But we'll talk about it when we get there. Go on.
Alrighty. So, like I said, the kids are trying to get their parents' attention and tell them that there's some danger looming, but this carefree mood of the party leaves the adults very dismissive of any type of looming danger.
They're all bummed.
Yeah. Now, at the same time, that's true. Now, at the same time, the Sanderson sisters do crash this party, and Max goes up on stage and he's trying to warn them. He's like, 300 years ago, the Sanderson sisters took the children. And he's telling this, very Abraham Lincoln story. And
Very.
and Winnie cleverly acts as if Max was introducing them for a performance because previously the song that was playing was I Put a Spell on You. And she decides, listen, I can do it better. And the sisters do their very, very famous song, I Put a Spell on You, which
Oh,
is one of Bette Midler's like top songs. Like people think that she is probably the best. This is the best rendition of this song. Um,
there's so
and,
many good versions.
yeah,
Like, honestly, she did do it better than the guy who was singing it because he was singing
yeah.
stuff like regular, like a party band, and she came in and knocked it out. Also when we used to reenact this as kids, I used to like to do the background dances, like all that
Yeah.
fun stuff. Um, but yeah, but Annie Lennox did a really good rendition of this song.
She did. Yeah, yeah. I love
Annie
Annie
Lennox did
Lennox.
powerful, but Bette Midler, man, also if you guys don't know, like Bette Midler, like Broadway, she just put out like tons of albums back in the day. She's really an incredible vocalist
Yeah, she
and also
definitely
a spooky
is.
witch. Yeah.
So they do their spell. Well, they do their song, I Put a Spell on You, which also puts all the adults under a spell, having them dance until they die, leaving the town's children vulnerable to the Sandersons' attack later on.
Yes.
So,
They do say, which I find interesting, so when they're casting their spell, they have a few kind of like chants like they did earlier that we were talking about, like when they cast their
mhm.
spell on Binks. And one of the things they're saying, and again, I don't know the origin for this, they say in Kama Koriyama, which also they use in Hocus Pocus too. So there's some kind of
Um,
meaning to that. I don't know what it translates to or if it's gibberish or what. But when they cast a spell in Hocus Pocus 2 on the people, same kind of like music song spell, they use that same line. So just another little
hmm.
sprinkle for you.
Interesting,
Don't know what
interesting.
it means, but here, here we are.
So the kids escape the party, and mind you, Billy has found his way to the party too. He's still hot on the kids' trail. But the kids and Binks escape the party, and Allison has an idea. And this idea includes luring the witches to the high school and locking them in a kiln, setting them on fire.
I was wondering what I was like, is that a kiln? Because I've only ever seen the small
Yeah.
versions of them. This, I believe, is our last building that actually is in Salem. And I believe it's off of the Salem Common, which is the park we talked about before. And it actually is an elementary school,
Hmm.
interestingly, but it's a beautiful, enormous building. So it's Phillips Elementary School. And that was used for the stand-in, which was in this movie, Jacob Bailey High.
Okay.
So another building they used.
And I mean, if this is a real kiln that they have, it's huge. And
Oh my
I
God.
wish that my high school had pottery so we could have a big giant kiln like this that I would be
Yeah.
afraid that I would get trapped in one day.
For real.
So,
No, I really didn't know. I mean, I think it makes sense because it's like it has all the shelves in it. But like I said, I only ever saw like the little one that you just like you place the stuff in
yeah,
and then you leave it. There's not like because also I feel like that's a hazard that you can get stuck in it and then you burn or
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know. Yeah.
So, I mean, but that is their plan and it does work. And the witches catch on fire, and there's a big giant green plume that comes out of the top of the building. And Max, Danny, Allison, and Binks celebrate their victory outside dancing around. And at this time, Max and Binks have a little short moment because Binks misses Emily, and he's telling Max, like, look, don't take Danny for granted because I wish that I had my Emily back, and
Mm,
you have your sister. And so at that point, they all go back to the house because Binks is now honorary member of the family,
yeah.
and Allison isn't going home yet, so they all go back to Max and Danny's house. And so at this point, it's about 3 a.m., the witching hour, and everybody feeling very tired and feeling like the dangerous past, they drift off to sleep. And now the reason why we know it's 3 o'clock in the morning is because we see Jay and Ice outside. Um, and they are basically talking about like still terrorizing the town and watching people get undressed. And it's like, but it's 3 a.m.
Where are their
now.
parents?
Right, right. Now, I told you that to let you know what time it was, but let me go back to you. So we talked about this previously, that there were no witches burned in Salem. And that's a false rumor. And it's also false for this movie because the witches did not burn to death. They were still alive. So when the kiln stopped firing
Yep.
and it cooled off, Winnie was able to blow the door open and they were able to walk out.
Hmm.
And at this point, Winnie is pissed and she wants her book, so much so that she says it in French. Um,
I've always thought that was funny because they lured them in with that French tape
yes, yep.
that was like, and I don't know French, so I'm gonna say Je suis la jeune vie from Muzzy. Do you guys remember Muzzy from that? That was on the beginning of many of our VHS tapes, right? But she comes out and she's like, I want my book. And then she says the same thing in French where she's like,
It's
mm-hmm,
it's like
mm-hmm.
it's like Je voudrais mon libre or something like that. I used to take French, but
Oh, there you
I
go.
haven't
Okay.
taken French in a very long time. I now take Dutch. So I can't, in order for me to speak Dutch, I had to forget all of my French. Okay.
You only have
So
room for so much. Yeah,
yes. So
I get it.
I don't speak Dutch, but I'm learning Dutch. So okay. I'm not going to say anything now because I would embarrass myself, probably getting tongue tied and saying it backwards.
The
So,
Duolingo bird is going to show up and beat you.
right? Oh
So,
my
yeah.
God.
That bird is scary sometimes.
There's a video game where you fight the Duolingo bird.
No.
And he is murderous. Like he is trying to rip you to shreds because you have not done your lesson for the day. It's a hilarious video game, and it's a short video game by an independent creator, but it's
That's very
hilarious.
funny. That
And it makes
bird,
sense.
not for nothing, he has made me sad on more than one occasion where he shows up in my email. He's like, "You're making Duo sad," and I'm like, "I'm so sorry." Like,
Yeah.
he's
In
like,
fact,
you have time today for your lesson." And I was like, "No, I don't. Leave me alone."
right. As a matter of fact, funny enough, I forgot to do my lesson today. I am on a 150 some day streak, but I do have a streak freeze, I think, available. So I'll, even if I don't do it today, I'll probably be able to just catch back up tomorrow. Um,
Well, if anything happens to
yeah.
you, we know
Yeah, the Duolingo
that it
bird
was
came
the
in and
Duolingo bird.
got me.
He is
So
so scary.
yeah. So so like I said, the witches are now free and they are on the tail of the kids. And Mary is back to sniffing around. And that leads them to Ice and Jay because one of them still has on Max's shoes.
Yeah.
And so they made the mistake of calling the sisters ugly,
Yep.
which quickly ended them up begging for their lives at the Sandersons' house, locked up in cages in the up near the ceiling.
Very little
Uh,
ones too. They were like
yes,
very. Do you notice at
yes,
one point Sarah was like poking one of them with a stick? She was
yeah.
like, "Ah."
And then later on, she like swings them around.
She
Yeah,
was holding on to the bottom like it was like a thing at the playground and like
yeah.
twirling around on it. She's so
So,
chaotic. I love it.
which they got what they deserved. I'm not mad
They
at that.
did. No, they definitely deserved it.
Yeah. So Winnie is trying to remember the spell that she said in the beginning to get the potion because now they have two boys. And because they're still kids. So they're like, look, we can drain their life force. And we got two. So that'll give us twice the power. But Winnie can't remember it. She's like, dead man's toes. Maybe it's some thumbs. Maybe it's something else. And even though our good girl Sarah, who was chanting dead man's toes in the beginning, she remembers it because she's like, I was chanting that. She's like, dead man's toes. And Winnie's like, whatever. And she's
Yeah.
very upset because she's like, I can't remember. I need my book. And she basically asked the book, like, she's like, oh, book, give me a sign, which back at Max's house, the book does wake up and is like, if you call me, I might be able to show you where I'm at.
I will answer. Did we mention the eyeball in the book?
I have not, but yes, there is an
That's
eyeball on
pretty
the
cool
book.
because that's how we know when we say it's awake, right? Is
Mhm.
that it has one singular eyeball, and then occasionally it will just pop open, and that's how we know that it's paying attention. So,
Yes.
yeah.
So, like I said, she wakes the book and its eye pops open. Now, at 5 a.m., which is nearly dawn, Allison wakes up and again, we know it's 5 a.m. because she's like, oh, it's 5 a.m.
She does say it, yes.
And she wakes up and talks to Max about helping Binks. And because they believe that the witches are dead, they decide that they're going to open up the book. And as soon as they do, they don't see it, but Winnie is able to see in the distance a giant beam of light coming out of Max and Danny's house, telling them where the book is and where the kids are. And Binks does wake up and immediately jumps on top of the book to close it. And Allison's like, look, we were just trying to help you. And Binks is like, I don't need you to help me. Don't do that. Like he had warned them not to open the book.
Right.
And now, unfortunately, the rest of the events of the night have been set into motion. So Allison is upset and she's kind of mad that, well, not mad, but she's upset that she was admonished for opening that book. So they go downstairs. But one of the things that Allison read in the book was that salt is used for protection against the spells. So she's like, I know that they're gone, but I'd feel much more comfortable walking home with some salt. So they raid the cabinets and find some salt. And just as they're like about to kiss each other, they hear a noise from upstairs. And when they get back upstairs, they are ambushed by the Sanderson sisters who are hiding in the bed and in the closet, holding Danny and Max. And once again, they zap Max. Um, I said Danny and Max, but I meant Binks. I'm sorry. So they're holding Danny and Binks, and they zap Max, flipping him over like his drum set that he has in his
Yeah.
room. Um, and they burst out of well, basically at this point, Allison is like using assault and she's protecting herself because she's like, you're not going to get me. And it's interesting because this whole time, Allison is very knowledgeable about the Sanderson sisters. Her mom worked at the Sanderson sisters' house and she's using this salt and they call her a little white witch. And it was kind of cute because it's like she does kind of come off like a witch to a certain extent, but just a
Yeah.
good witch. Um, and so, like I said, they burst out of the window that's up in the loft portion of this room. Like Megan said earlier, there's like
Right.
this staircase inside of Max's room that leads to another section. They burst out of that and fly off. And, you know, eventually Allison is like, look, Max, they took Danny. We have to go get them. And she has another idea, which this idea involves driving the car over there and pretending like it's daylight savings time. But
Which is funny.
it is interesting. In the interim, as the sisters are flying back to their house, we now see Sarah doing her magical moment, her
Song.
gift,
Yeah.
singing to the kids like the Pied Piper, luring them to the house so that they can have an endless supply of children to feast upon while their parents are dancing until they die.
Yeah. So everyone's having
Yeah.
a great time. And this, by the way, I know we made a mention at the beginning of the episode, but this is when they have replaced their brooms because some children have
They did
stolen
steal them.
them.
I forgot to mention that. Yeah.
So Sarah's flying a mop, Mary's flying a vacuum, and Winnie still has a broom because she's Winnie. But yeah, so that's what they have flown. They flew like around ever since Satan's house, I think. Satan.
Yeah, when they were at
Um,
Satan's house, the brooms got stolen by some kids, which I don't know why the
who were
kids would
dressed
think
as
they
them.
right. And they said cool brooms. And I'm like, why would you think a broom is cool? If I saw a broom outside, that's not the first thing I would see. I don't care what the broom looks like. I've seen brooms made for like spells and stuff. And yeah, they look cool, but I'm not gonna steal it. I'm not gonna take it.
Well, you also know better because maybe someone has done something to that, like in anti-theft
Right.
something, which also is a fun fact. When you're shopping in Salem, for real, anytime you go into any kind of witchcraft store, there are signs all over that if you steal anything, something bad will happen to you. And the people who own these stores are serious people. So I would take that serious. I'm just saying that, and it's written as a rhymey spell. Do you know what I mean? It's not like we are cursing you if you're like, it'll be like, if upon these items take you must, like it's like some shit, you know? So
Yeah. I mean, listen, the thing is, there's only so many things that are going to deter people. And I think that the fear of the unknown, of not knowing whether or not you are going to have a hex, or if somebody's going to haunt you, or if your, fingers are going to fall off or some stuff like that,
yeah.
the fear
Well,
of that, could
because
definitely cause somebody not steal.
they did not specify what they did to the thing, right?
Right.
So anything could happen. They're like, you will have explosive diarrhea for the next 3 weeks. Like, you don't know. Is it worth the risk? Is
That's
it?
true.
I don't think it is.
No, I don't think so
Honest.
either.
Mm-mm,
But
mm-mm.
yeah, they did steal their brooms earlier on. And then when the book spoke to the witches and told them where it was with the beam of light, that's when
Mm-hmm.
they grabbed the broom, the mop, and the vacuum cleaner.
And not the Swiffer wet jet.
Yes.
No. Mm-mm.
And so because the kids are out in the street, it's taking Max and Allison a long time to get to the
Mm-hmm.
house because they're all walking like zombies in the middle of the street going towards the house. But they do get there. And just as they're about to pour this liquid into Danny's mouth, Max jumps back into things like, hey, he's like, I got something for you, daylight savings time. And from outside, Allison flicks on the lights of the car, which I think they put some type of tape on it or something to make it like red,
Right.
like the early sunrise. And once again, these witches are tricked
Like,
into thinking that they're
oh my
dying.
gosh. Yes.
And so
They're very dramatic.
they are. And so they're like,
Mm.
oh my God, oh my God. And while they're in the midst of dying, quote unquote
Sinking to the
dying,
floor. Like, oh
right.
my gosh. Yes.
Um, at that point, they Max is trying to free Danny, and Ice and Jay are still up in their little confines, and they're like, hey Hollywood, like help us. And fortunately for them, like the one of them, their feet was hanging out of this thing, and Max was able to get his shoes back, so
Mm-hmm.
that's good. You only lost your shoes for a couple hours, sir. Then you got them
Yeah,
back,
you can.
but I wouldn't have wanted to put them on because that man had holes in his socks,
Yeah, it was
and
gross.
I'm like, that's athlete's foot, like right there. Like I'm good.
It was
I'm
gross. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
No.
so good with that. So anyway, they escape again with Binks and with Danny, and the sisters, realizing that they're not dying, finally get up and pursue the kids. And this is when we get to the final showdown at back at the cemetery. Now outside the cemetery, Billy grabs Max, and Whitty is commanding him like, kill him. And Billy has like a knife, and it looks like he's going to really take Max out, but instead he cuts his mouth open and like starts giving Winnie the business. He's pissed. He's like, I'm done with you. Like you're a hag, whatever.
Oh yeah,
And
he really and he's so excited to talk that he's like,
yes.
witch, and then he's like, oh, ooh, and he's excited. Also, when he cuts his mouth open, a bunch of moths fly out,
Yeah,
and
I
they're
was like,
real.
what?
They're real moths,
Shut up. Are
and
they?
they're alive. Yes. So
Doug.
no creatures died in the making of this movie. They were fine, but they did stitch him up. Like that did happen. Then he had to cut it, and so his mouth was full of real moths.
That's so
Um,
interesting.
he's committed, man. He's
Oh my
committed.
God.
Yeah, and he's like just his mouth full.
And I was
Um,
wondering what that was, and I'm just like, ew, it's like cotton coming out of his mouth.
no, it's really moss. I wonder how many takes.
I know. That's interesting. I didn't
I
see
know.
any facts about that in particular, like how many
Even,
takes it
but
took.
you saw like there
But
was dust too.
yeah.
Like they did it right. They
Oh
did.
my God.
Props to him. I
That's
hope they paid
so
him well.
interesting.
I hope they did.
Well, I'm sure they did. I mean, it wasn't Tony Todd level getting bee stings and getting
Oh,
paid per bee sting, but I'm
no.
sure he got paid good for that.
I hope.
So at this point, it's clear that Billy is on the side of Max and Danny, and he goes to join them in the cemetery to fight against the Sanderson sisters. So the sisters are ready to unleash their full power. They're determined to finish this ritual. And the kids do have a plan, though. They protect Danny by putting her in a grave and pouring salt all around it.
Billy's grave.
Yes, it's Billy's open grave that he burst out like a chest burster
And
earlier.
he said, but he's so sweet though. He goes to help Danny. He's like, "You'll be safe in here, little miss."
Yeah,
Like he puts her in there, and I think it's very
yeah,
sweet. Like what? As soon as Max says that he's good,
yeah.
they're all like, "Okay," and Danny's like, "Hi, Billy." Like
It's so
he's like,
sweet.
"Hi."
Yeah.
They're friends.
It's very, very sweet and touching.
Hmm.
And so they all take like different positions to protect Danny and just to like be on the offensive or the defensive rather. And so, this works for a moment and Winnie starts chasing Max and everything, but there's an issue because Winnie also flies into Billy and knocks his head off, which has happened before. His head was knocked off earlier in the movie
Yeah.
by Max. Now, when his head gets knocked off, of course, very sweet Danny gets up out of the grave away from her protection and goes to help him get his head back. And when she does that, Winnie grabs her. And now, back from where they were, when they were at the place or at their house, they had a little bit of this potion left that wasn't destroyed when they were fighting. And so she pulls out a vial and remember in the cemetery, they can't touch the ground because it's hollowed. And
Right.
so she has Danny up on her broom. She's trying to pour the liquid down her throat, and Binks, in like a moment like, look, I'm gonna save her because she's like my little sister, he jumps up, runs up the tree, and basically smacks the vial out of Winnie's hands.
Yep.
And in the interim, because of that, he like gets flicked away and like hits like a headstone or something and kind of crumples to the ground.
Yeah.
But um at this point, Max catches the vial and he is like, "You're not taking my sister." He drinks the vial of poison or potion himself and says, "Now you have to take me." And Wendy's not very happy about this. She basically calls him stupid for giving up, his life for his sisters. But she then pulls him up into the air and starts trying to drain his youth. But he puts up a fight. And meanwhile, there is a tug of war going on with Danny and Allison and Billy trying to pull Mary's vacuum cleaner, where Sarah is trying to pull the other way because they were trying to help Winnie because Winnie had almost fell off of her broom.
Right.
And they're having a tug of war. And so as the sun starts to rise, Allison is like, "Let go now." And they let go of the vacuum, which sends Mary and Sarah flying into the
Yeah.
air up to where the sun is. And at that point, Winnie falls off her broom along with Max, and she hits the hollow ground. But she's very close to Max, and she's like, "You know what? I'm still going to suck his life force out." That sounded weird, but y'all know what I mean. Okay.
Yes, we know. We know what you
Okay.
mean.
And so she crawls over to where he is and starts trying to do this, but the time has run out because the sun begins to rise. And as the sun continues to rise and Winnie has stood up holding Max, she turns into stone. And as she turns into stone, her sisters both poof in the air. They're obliterated, saying bye as before they
Yeah.
explode into dust. And Winnie also is turned into dust as well. She explodes. And Billy, I'm thinking Billy the puppet, not even Billy, the zombie, but Max is okay, and Danny and Allison and Billy all run over to Max, and Billy's like, "Ooh, like look at this sunrise," because he hasn't seen a sunrise in over 300 years, so he's
Yeah.
very happy to see that. And they're like, "Are you okay?" And they're checking on Max and everything like that, and he's like, "I'm fine," and Billy's like, "All right, I'm going back to bed," and he goes back to his eternal
He
slumber.
literally falls back into, he
He's like,
yawns and like falls
"Oh."
into his grave and all
Yes.
more dust shoots up.
Yeah.
Love it.
And so he goes back to bed.
Who's gonna bury
And
him though? Do they bury? Like,
listen, somebody,
imagine, wait, imagine someone going like, they're like, I'm gonna take a walk around this beautiful cemetery, and they find an open grave with like a decrepit zombie thing in
right.
it.
I'd be
That would
like,
be,
ooh,
I would be,
that's,
I feel like we would be excited about it, but also like, we should call someone
yeah,
about
I,
this.
I would feel
Yeah.
like that. I would also be looking at his hair because he had a full head of hair
Oh
and it
yeah.
was black. And
Your
I'm
hair
like,
looks great. Yeah.
yeah, I'm like, you have better hair than I have, sir. And that's 300-year-old hair. But yeah, so
Looking
I,
good.
I I would be interested. But he falls back into the
Yeah.
to the grave, and it's at this point that Danny realizes that Binks is not around. And she does discover Binks, and he is now passed away. And I can't even
Mm.
lie to you, I boohoo cried through this whole part.
Yeah,
Um,
me
and
too.
and so she's holding on to Binks, and she's like, "You can't leave. You're not supposed to die. You're supposed to come back to life like you did last time." And she hears him in the background. He's like, "I'm not. I'm right here." And you see him in his boy form now, and
Yeah.
his spirit has been freed, and he's telling Danny like, "Thank you for freeing me. I'll always be with you." He
Ugh.
kisses her on the cheek, and I'm still boohoo crying. And then we see that Emily has also been freed, and she's like,
Ugh.
"Thackeray Binks, where dost you?" or whatever she says, and she calls to him.
Whatever she says. That's funny.
And she's very happy to see him, and he's happy to see her, and he waves to everybody. And she's like, "What tooketh you so long?" And he's like, "I had to wait for a virgin to light the damn candle." And like,
That's
it's
funny.
very interesting. And so, at this point, with the witches vanquished, Danny, Max, and Allison return to their lives. They're forever changed by the night's events. The
Oh
spell
yeah.
on the parents are broken, and Thackeray Binks is finally free of his curse, reunited with Emily, and together they find peace. So as the sun rises over Salem, the legacy of the Sanderson sisters fades into the shadows until part two. But for right now,
Until part two.
that is the end of our
That's the end. You know what
story.
I love too, because the end of the movie, I don't know if I'm just because it was always sad, you know what I mean? Because I was like, I want her to keep the cat too, because I
Yeah.
always like cats as like a little girl too. Um,
And Megan has a Binks. She has
I
a black cat
do.
named Binks.
He's over, we can't see him because he's over sleeping in my closet right now. He's very irritating. He's not like the one in the movie in the movie. But um in this movie, as we end, and it's kind of like, oh, it's like bittersweet, but it's good. We then also get um Ice
Ice and
and
Jay still
Jay
stuck.
stuck in the cages where they're singing a song to each other. I forget what the
They
song
are. I
was,
don't remember the song
but
either,
they're
but
just like
yeah.
stuck in there. Oh, I think it's like 25 bottles of beer on the wall or
Oh, it
something.
might
I
be
don't know.
that. Yeah. But they're still stuck.
And it's dark in there now because everything is all the magical power has been kind of sucked out of the place. So I think it's nice to have that little comic relief at the end because it got sad for a second.
Yeah. Even with the parents being like, "Oh, oh, danced all night. All right." And like, not for nothing. What happened to the kids?
Yeah, where are all the kids? Did they just kind of wake up like sleepwalkers? Like, wait,
Right. And mind you, they were all carrying lights. They were carrying candles, jack-o'-lanterns, and things like that too,
a
which
turnip
was very
head maybe?
interesting. Yeah,
A
yeah,
lit turnip head?
absolutely. So
Stingy Jack?
they were all
Ugh.
stingy Jack in it, just wandering, which is interesting.
I hate that. Um,
So yeah,
what if, wait, this is totally a random ADD thought. What if Jack Skellington is supposed to be like a stingy Jack?
I believe that is true. Part of that. I heard somewhere that that character may have been based on that,
Hmm.
but it still leans more towards the jack-o'-lantern part.
Sure,
But
but I'm
yeah,
just picturing, I don't know why I was picturing like a tall, skinny, when you say stingy Jack, like I don't know. But then I'm thinking about the turnip head, and even though our friend Jack Skellington does not have a turnip head, he does have kind of like a weird
a weird skull
round.
looking head.
Yeah, so I'm like, what if we put the turnip head on Jack Skellington? But it
I
appears
mean,
that they already did that. Tim Burton and Danny Elfman and everyone else involved.
I have a lot of Jack Skellington stuff around. I like across the way from me, I actually have a Jack Skellington cup. I should have brought it over, but it's in the shape of his head, and he looks like a baseball. Uh,
Yeah, he does. I get
like
that.
looking at it, his mouth is like the stitching of a baseball, but he does have a very round looking face,
Hmm.
similar to like a pumpkin mixed with a skeleton. So like a jack-o'-lantern face, I guess. So a turnip head.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
So yeah, very, very interesting. So I have a little bit of some trivia and everything
yeah.
here. So, of course, we talked about the Salem witch trials, and they took place in the 1600s, and that did lead to the execution of 20 people, primarily women accused of witchcraft. And again, today that means Salem is now famous for that, but it's also famous for its Halloween celebrations and witch theme events.
Hmm.
And honestly, the most popular Halloween costume is for adults a witch and for kids superheroes. So that
Yep.
is the most common thing. And so some quick facts also about Hocus Pocus itself. The budget was 28 million. It grossed 45.4 million. It is a beloved Halloween classic. Like I said, for most people who grew up in the 90s, they love this. It did have some very bad reception, though. Critics
Mm-hmm.
gave it a 38% on Rotten Tomatoes. However, the audience liked it and they gave it 80%. Um,
Yes.
and most of the critics were saying that it had issues with the plot and the character development, and it was just like not good. Um, and so there were some other things. Let me see. Um, yeah, that's really it for that for the most part. Um, so right now, I know we talked a little bit about it earlier, and you said that you earlier really loved Sarah. So which and I had this question. It's funny because we kind of talked about it before we even started recording.
Mm.
Which Sanderson sister do you identify with the most, and which traits do you share?
I don't want to give myself this much credit, but I feel like it really does align. I feel like if I was taking a BuzzFeed which character are you quiz, I would be Winifred because we have similar rage. Like that scene we talked about before where they're like, calm down, and she's like, I have come. Like I, as a Sagittarius fire sign lady, that is relatable to me. Um, I love Sarah's kind of like whimsy, and I feel like maybe like my introvert side of me is much more Mary, but it's like at my core, my base traits, I feel like I'm kind of a Winnie. Like I'm always like I like to be in control of things. I get angry sometimes. So maybe her. Also, I will add as backup and validation, my nephews, my step nephews who are older, they were older when I met them. And I was talking about probably when the youngest one was 9. What should we be for Halloween? Should we be the Hocus Pocus witches? And they were like, yeah. And I said, well, who should we be or who should I be? And he said, well, you have to be Winifred. And I was like,
Hey,
okay. So I'm just saying I have the approval of children, and that's all you need for Halloween. Okay.
hey.
So same question back at you. Who do you think, in what way you relate to them, traits, etc.?
So I definitely don't relate to Sarah at all, but I do think I relate to Mary. Mary in this movie is she's silly to a certain extent, but she's
Yeah.
also very grounded.
Oh
And
yeah.
she is the one that's a little more calm and a little bit more like, okay, things are going kind of bad, but woo woo woo, you know. Um, if you've ever watched Living Single, she's very Sinclair Living Single to me, like woo woo woo. And so, but I do feel like there's a part of me that does have the Winifred part too,
Hmm.
because I am also very controlled and I do like things to be a certain way. And I have a quiet rage where if I don't get something the way I want it to be, I'm pissed. But I don't show it. I'm more of Mary, so I'm going to be more calm about it.
Right.
But I'm still very much a control freak to a certain extent.
I think that makes sense because I don't think like you're married to, I feel like maybe ours are oppositely
Hmm.
balanced. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Because like I said, like I have those like married tendencies too, but maybe on like the lower scale because I'm very loud about my feelings, whereas you kind of hold yours. So I think we're both kind of a mix,
Yep.
but just kind of like tilted a little different on the
Yin
scale.
and yang,
And
basically.
I got a little bit of Sarah in me too, but I got a little bit. Um,
But
I don't eat
yeah,
any spiders though, just to be clear. I don't eat them.
Lord.
So, no.
Well, what did you think about this movie overall?
I mean, I love this movie. It's a classic. So much, so quotable for me. So much like we played this on the playground. My best friend since elementary school, like still we quote it to each other. Like you know, um, I love it. I think it's a good movie. The thing I think is funny about like they're like, oh, the character development. I'm like, it's a kids movie about witches in Salem, Massachusetts. So like
What do you expect?
I think they did a good job. I think it's solid. I think it definitely it's popular, but I think it really does have a cult following, but like in a way that's like, I don't know, like bigger than just, it's not like a niche movie. Like so many people appreciate it. I know, I don't remember what the channel is now. Freeform.
Yeah.
It used to be like like not ABC Family or something
Yeah,
like that.
no, it was ABC Family.
Okay. Yeah, it plays Hocus Pocus like every other night for the entire month of October. Um, someone posted this the other day, and I thought it was so funny because it's kind of true. If you're a horror fan, and I mean this again in a nice way, Hocus Pocus is like the live, love, laugh of horror movies of Halloween movies. And I
Yeah.
do agree with that. I do think there's still something enjoyable about it, even if we might regard it now as a bit basic or I don't know, like so standard or like even some people might think it's a little tired, but I think it's a great movie. I think it's solid. I don't really have anything bad to say about it. I don't. I love that they use so many places in actual Salem, like they went out of their way to do that. Even some parts where he was like Max on his bicycle through the town. I was
Yeah.
like looking in the back. I was like, what looks familiar? Because once you get into the residential areas, it's a little harder to tell. Um, but even when the parents came out of the dance, I was looking behind them and you can see it's Old Town Hall still. And I was like, oh, so beautiful. I don't know.
Nice.
I love it there. They did good. And also, I'll just say this too, in the second Hocus Pocus, they used the Salem trolley, the real Salem trolley, which had real ads for real businesses in Salem. So again,
Oh, wow.
I love that they did that. Um, and also you see one of our, as if I'm a member of their community. In my heart, I very much am. Babora, one of their most beloved buskers in the background, who is a beautiful witch and she loves to tell people to have a horrible day. And I love her, but you can see her just in the background. She doesn't have a part or anything.
That's lovely.
It's really cool. But yes, what about you? What do you think?
So this is, I'm gonna say probably my second time seeing this movie in full.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm just not somebody that rewatches movies a lot. So
Sure,
yeah.
sure,
So but I mean, it's one of those movies that because people watch it all the time and because you always have references to it and whatnot. And I saw the second one right when it came out, um, which meant that I did kind of like look at clips of the first one just to kind of
sure.
refresh.
Hmm.
So, it was fresh in my mind. And I think that for a movie from 1993, I think it's a really good movie. It's a kids movie.
Yeah,
It's cute. It's doing its thing.
yeah.
um I do have some issues though. And my issues have nothing to do with like the character development or anything like that. My issues have to do with the very adult themes that were sprinkled throughout this movie that were very, very like disturbing. For one, it was weird because obviously when people say, "Oh, a virgin has to light a candle," they're assuming it's a girl. And the moment that we find out that it's the boy who lights the candle, it becomes a very big deal that he has not lost his virginity. That's creepy to me. And though kids are not going to pick up on that theme, it's said many times throughout this, not only by the kids, but by adults. And that's weird.
I
Even to the
think,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
no, I was just gonna say sorry not to cut you off, but the thing
Mhm.
about it seems like you hear it more from the adults,
Yeah.
which makes it weird because the kids, I mean, it's silly and they should not judge each other based off that. But the fact that it's more like the adults saying it does make it very weird.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's weird even that it's the parting shot of a ghost leaving. So like it's just creepy to me.
Even the ghosts are in on it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other part that I had a problem with is Sarah and Sarah's her very sexual nature towards the kids. Like again, you don't pick up on this as a child. She comes off if you have the mind of a child, you're thinking she's very playful and funny and cutesy and stuff. But looking at it as an adult,
Mm.
there's a part where she knows that Max is the virgin and she looks at him and says, like, I'll spend time with the little virgin boy. I'll be your friend, or something really creepy like that. And I'm like, he's a child and you are
Well,
clearly you're 300 years old. Like
Yeah.
300
She literally
plus.
says later when she was like, I don't know if it was Binks, I think it was Max, but she was like, "What should I do with you?" And Sarah's like, "Hang him on a hook and let me play with him." And it's like,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
mm,
And like she's always like boys and stuff like that. Um, it's very, very like creepy. Like, and so those two very grown adult themes in this movie were off-putting for me. It's because like the rest of the movie is so fun and so whimsical and it's so cute.
it
And
was
even
unnecessary. Yeah.
yeah, it was over the top. Like, okay, we got it. A virgin has to light the I'm sorry, a virgin has to light the
Tell us
candle,
how you really feel.
right? So
Well,
we get it. We get it. You don't have to beat us over the head with it where 8-year-old says it and then the ghost says it and a fake cop says it. You know what I'm saying? Everybody keeps saying it over and over again. Like he said, tattooed on my fucking head. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
And you know, so I had a problem with that. But other than that,
The bus driver was really creepy. And the
oh
thing
yeah.
that he said, which went totally over my head as a kid, really freaked me out. Like it didn't freak me out, but I was just like, ew, yuck. Like, so they go to get on the bus, right? And he was like, "What can I do for you, ladies?" or whatever. And she was like, "We desire children." And he was like, "Well, it might take me a couple tries, but I'm sure I could."
Oh yeah, that part too. I forgot.
Yuck.
That is also very nasty. And not to mention he spits out the window before he says this, which was really like that's nasty in itself.
I think they were trying to portray that he was like low class, but also that's
Yeah,
kind of silly. And like, not to get like too into like whatever, but like, just because he's like a blue collar worker, like, doesn't mean
right.
that he's like a piece of shit. So, like,
Right. Or stupid or
like,
something or
I
like, you know,
know.
because that's how they portrayed him. Like he was like some doof
Oh yeah, so
that
he's a bus driver, so he must be disgusting. Like, oh,
yeah, and then maybe they weren't trying to take it that far and make it funny, but like you said, and I heard that part and I was kind of like, that's gross. But I think because I think I was more hung up on the part that she said, we desire children. Now, for
yeah,
you to not know that woman and her to say that and your response to be like, it take me a few tries, but I think I can do it, that's
yeah.
nasty. That is nasty. But again, it was adult to adult, so I didn't give it too much issue.
No, I
You know what
know.
I'm saying? But at the same time, yeah, that's another very adult theme. And that's the thing. Disney is very well known for being gross like that throughout
Disney's
their
famous for
movies,
that. Yeah,
you know? And so I really feel and we just know with all the corruption that's been brought to light in 2024, we know that Disney is
yeah,
full of that type of stuff. And I mean, I just feel like there are certain things that have no place in children's movies. This movie would be great without that stuff. You don't need that
sure.
stuff. Yes, you need the part about the virgin. Mention it twice. Okay. You don't have to mention it all the way through. And the reason why I say you mention it twice is because she mentions it when she curses the town when she first gets killed, when he does. And that's in the very, you know, prologue of the movie, basically. And then when later on, when they do it and they talk about, oh, you know, it had to be a virgin who blows out the candle. Okay, mention it again. And clearly, if they're resurrected, that boy's a virgin. It's almost like you know that. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
it's one of those things they could have certainly taken out. I think that I don't know what goes into that part of it, like with the writing, because it's like, well, kids are going to watch this, so their parents watch it too, so let's put something in it for them, and the kids won't know anyway. And truly, like you're saying, we didn't notice it. We
and that's
didn't.
what it is.
We didn't notice it at all.
But
Yeah.
that's what it is. Like I have read things where purposely a lot of movies if you go to almost any kids movie, there are adult themes sprinkled throughout
Oh yeah.
because they assume that a person who is bringing their child wants to also be entertained. So in order to do that, they will hide themes of sex, themes of drugs, themes of you know all types of inappropriate stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
They'll do stuff like breaking the fourth wall and like wink like ha. So you know that there's a joke, but the kids aren't getting it.
Right.
And you know it's always been a ploy to get parents into seats because if it's a movie I'm going to take for example and I think this movie is clean from what I remember Encanto. I don't know if anybody's seen Encanto. It
I
is
feel like a lot of
also
people have seen Encanto. I actually
yeah
have never watched it through, but I know about it.
it's a good movie and I feel like that movie is very clean. It's a musical type movie. You could watch this movie and be fine with it. I think Coco is the same way. You could watch that movie and be fine with it. I don't think I saw any like adult themes through either of those movies. And I don't watch kids movies like that, but those two animated movies I actually really like.
Right.
And I have not seen them more than once, but I probably, if I'm going to watch anything more than once, I'm going to watch Coco more than once because it is about the Day of the Dead and I love
Uh,
that. Um I have like sugar skulls and stuff like that. So,
precious.
um, yeah, but I think you can make a movie, for a child that an adult can spend an hour sitting through it. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
Like, I have never seen Frozen. I don't know if like Olaf's nose is like some type of phallic symbol and they make jokes about it at some point. I have no idea,
I think
but
it's relatively clean. 'Cause I really liked Frozen. So I have a thing like you guys know, or you should know by this point if you've been with us the whole time. Um, I have problems with like reboots. Like we grew up with a lot of them, speaking for you, I'm sorry. But like these kind of classic kind of like Disney
we did.
princesses that was kind of like a standard amount and they keep making new ones. So when they make new stories, I'm like, am I gonna like this? Right? In the same way that anytime they make this. So I waited a long time to like see Frozen, but I really liked it. Um, and aside from the thing where they make everyone's parents die in like every Disney movie for some
Yeah.
reason, which is definitely traumatic, and I do remember feeling really messed up about those things when I was little, seeing like Dumbo and like
I
The
think it's everybody's
Lion
mother.
King.
Almost everybody's mother. The Lion King is my favorite Disney movie of all
That was
time.
so
But
Mufasa
that is,
though,
yeah,
that
but
was brutal.
that was traumatizing. I cry every
Yeah,
time I watch
Dumbo,
that.
Bambi, Lion King, and then, we have Frozen. There's other ones as well, um but yeah, I think that one's relatively good.
Safe.
And like Brave. I love
Yeah,
Brave. Merida's badass. I love her.
yeah.
My little Scots girl. Yeah.
I think there came a point where like we went through a whole period where things were very sexualized. And I think as we got into the era where Gen Zers were coming up of age, that age group tends to be much more prudish. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean
Yeah,
that
yeah.
a lot of the content and a lot of things they grew up with were less sexual in nature than millennials grew up with. And so, I think that we get these movies now that are made when Gen Zers were children that are much more clean, like you said, Frozen and Brave and things like that. So,
I think
like,
Princess and the Frog too. Like I don't think there was anything weird about that one.
probably not. I have not seen that one. Sorry, take my black card because I haven't seen that
Oh
one.
no, it's really
But
good. Ben,
but
she
yeah.
wants to make beignets.
And
And there's
listen,
frogs. Sorry.
Is it Papa Legba that's in that? I can't remember his
Yes.
name. But
Yes, yes, yes.
I have seen his singing scene and I watched it on repeat. I love it. So I've seen that, but I have not seen anything else. So I couldn't tell you anything else about it. But
Yeah.
but like yeah, I know we went on a tangent at this point. So, you know, if you know, don't want to stay for the rest of it, it's fine. You can catch the bloody X's if you fast forward. You can stay if you want. You can log off if you want. Every episode isn't going to be for everybody. And we know that. We know that.
We
So,
know it.
you know,
We get it.
um, but we're kind of going on a rant here, and I'm fine with that. Because the Disney is interesting in general to
Oh
me,
yeah.
from their actual like theme parks to their movies to their consolidation and acquisition of everything under the sun.
Hmm.
Um,
Everything.
it's yeah, like it's crazy. So I could talk about Disney stuff
Wait,
for a
did they
while.
did they buy Deadpool?
Well, they own Marvel.
So yeah, no, so I think there's a lot of references in that. I just saw that movie, the Deadpool Wolverine movie. Um, and there's a lot of bashing of the other people. They're like, F you, Fox, you messed it because they,
Hmm.
all the things. And they were like, you tried to cancel it, and Deadpool is very mouthy and then whatever. That is not an appropriate movie for children, by the way.
No.
No,
But
don't do that.
yeah, there was a whole big thing between Marvel and Sony, which is why Spider-Man for the longest time can't be inside of couldn't be in any Marvel movies. And that's the same
Right.
reason why Marvel never had mutants in their movies for a while. They were calling them something else. um
Non-X-Men.
Yeah, and so because
Yeah.
they couldn't use the rights, and Disney was pissed about that because these other companies were not giving up the rights because they're like these are our cash cows. Like Spider-Man is one of the biggest properties that Sony owned.
Sure.
And for them to give that up to Disney would
Yeah.
be crazy. You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
I get not wanting to
So,
give it up, but it's like they're trying to put everything in one place and they're trying to cash in on their characters and like I get that. I get it.
but you know what though? But I think that it's also selfish on Disney's part
Of course it is. Come on.
because here Deadpool is the first rated R character that Disney has ever had, they ever owned. And they took a very big chance doing a red band movie for Deadpool.
Oh yeah.
And the only reason why they have been able to just keep this up and acquire more things is because Deadpool was a success and they found out that people were not going to shy away from Disney not having a squeaky clean image, you
Absolutely
know.
not.
But
Deadpool is my favorite Disney princess.
yeah, he's
Actually,
dope.
I also really like Joanna from The Rescuers Down Under. Do you remember
Oh
her?
yes.
Joanna
Yeah.
Goanna. She was that weird lizard that was always like wanting to eat eggs and steal them. And she always was making the wildest faces. She's a beautiful Disney princess too. So,
Listen, I mean, I'm definitely a classic Disney person
yeah,
if anything, because I don't think I have mentioned that I didn't see any type of horror movies until I was an adult. I don't know if I mentioned that the only movies I was allowed to watch as a child were Disney movies and movies that were by it wasn't Pixar back then. It was a different group though. The whoever made the Anastasia movies, it was them.
Fox. That was
Um
Fox.
was it Fox? What I forget what the name of that company was though that
I,
made Anastasia.
it was, oh God, I want to say Donald Blum. Is that, no, why can't I think of his name? He made a few movies and, Thumbelina he made.
Yeah, Thumbelina.
That was one that I had. Um,
Oh,
Bluth. Bluth. It was Don Bluth. I got there. I got there in that.
okay.
Don Bluth.
But yeah, it was made by 20th Century Fox, but guess what? That was also acquired by Disney in 2019.
Acquired by, but they kind of have the monopoly. But there it used to be.
Yeah.
Anastasia was a bomb movie, by the way.
Yes.
I definitely sang one of the songs from Anastasia in theater camp, everyone. So that's just, okay. All right.
Well, yeah.
But yeah. Um, look, so we're not only horror ghouls, we are movie ghouls in general, okay? But horror specific, but also other movies,
Yeah.
Disney princesses, and Deadpool and Wolverine. You have to
And
see this
Jurassic
movie. You
Park.
have you have to see that movie. You're gonna love Wolverine and the latest Deadpool Wolverine. He
Yeah.
does an amazing job, Hugh Jackman. Yes, in Jurassic Park, of course. And yeah, good stuff. We got witches, we got dinosaurs, we got
Deadpool.
comic book
Yeah.
characters and superheroes and mutants and witches. Speaking of also, I don't know if, and this could just kind of bring it back a little bit to kind of our this brand, right? Um, who of us watched WandaVision?
Oh yeah, I loved WandaVision.
I loved WandaVision. I need to watch Agatha All Along
Yeah.
because I think the cast of that show is absolutely incredible. I don't have a Disney subscription.
Me neither. I was about to say when I watched WandaVision, I was watching it illegally. So,
Does anybody want to share their Disney
right?
subscriptions with us? But the cast, obviously, oh my gosh, why can't I think of her name right now?
I can never think of anybody's name, so I can't help you.
Okay, so we have our main lady. I know you guys are yelling her name, Agatha herself, right?
Yeah.
She's incredible. Aubrey Plaza is incredible. Patty LuPone is absolutely incredible. And they've had some clips
Catherine
lately.
Hahn.
Catherine Hahn, yes, of course. And she was in Parks and Rec as well, which is one of my
Hmm.
favorite shows. Um, Aubrey Plaza is incredible and like lives that kind of like spooky witchy life. It's like her dream. Her handle on something was like evil hag. I think that was like her Twitter handle or like she's amazing. But her and Patty LuPone actually lived together for a short time.
Wow.
And there's a very funny story about it, which I won't bore you with, but look it up about she did the late night circuit on and on Seth Meyers, they were saying, "Oh, so Patty LuPone almost killed you when you guys lived together." And she was like, "Yes." And then she told the story. I'm not going to retell it. I will ruin it for you. Please look it up. It's hysterical. Also, if you know who Patty LuPone is, or you're familiar with the way she speaks or anything, the story is even funnier because of the way Aubrey says the word she says to her as like Patty LuPone would have said it, and she nails it, and it just makes it even more absurd. Um, but yeah, it looks like a great show. If any one of you has watched it and you want to tell us if it's worth it, if it's worth, I don't know, getting a subscription, which still, if you'd rather share it with us, that would be great.
Right?
Um, but I am interested in seeing that one for sure.
I am too, and I have a weird thing where I just can't watch shows like when I'm supposed to. But
Same.
like I took a while to get into WandaVision.
Me
And
too. It took me a long
yeah,
time to watch it. Yeah.
yeah, and once I did though, I was locked in. I was like, oh, this is good. Now, I mean, there were certain parts that I liked more than others, but
Of
you know,
course.
once you get to the end and you know, see what's happening and they start running stuff back and you're like, oh, to then
It,
know that there's a show based on all of that, I'm like, yeah,
it
I'm
was
all
a
in.
brilliant show.
And I love Elizabeth Olsen. I will say this,
Oh,
like her as Wanda Scarlet Witch is it's a great casting. I will say the only thing I have a problem with is the fact that in the very beginning of the Avengers she had an accent and then all of a sudden it was gone. But
yeah.
but I'm fine with her portrayal and I love her as the Scarlet Witch and
Oh,
you
yeah.
know,
She does good.
yeah, she would be the only at this point she's the only draw for me to see any type of Avengers movie. I
Really.
yeah, because I don't care about anybody else.
There are some, just like anything, there are some characters I gravitate more to others. So like I saw also my dad, he's a frequent third guest on this podcast for some reason. He was really big into comic books, so kind of secondhand, I grew up with a lot of things like that, and Spider-Man and Iron Man and the Incredible Hulk, and I grew up knowing these characters. And I don't care about Ant-Man, you guys. I don't. I love Paul Rudd, but
Yeah, same.
it doesn't do anything for me.
I haven't seen any of those movies. I've seen
You
every
know,
movie up until the very last Avengers movie. I have seen out except with the exception of both Ant-Man movies.
same. I can't. And like I understand that he's important to these things, and I like him in the movies when he shows up in the Avengers movies, but I'm just like I don't
I
care.
don't
Or like
yeah.
Hawkeye, I don't care about. I'm sorry, like I
Yeah.
don't care about
I
him. I like him when he's around, but if there was like a Hawkeye exclusive movie, I'd be like, ah. And it's not because of the character, like it's not because of Jeremy Renner.
I
It's
like
not
him.
because of any. I love Jeremy Renner and he's also very handsome, but I just don't, it doesn't do anything for me.
No.
So I get it. And there's probably maybe that's something that makes people angry. And I'm sorry that you're angry, but this is my journey, not
I
yours.
mean, not for nothing. All of the characters that had some type of interests are gone.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we lost Chadwick Boseman, who was a
Oh,
phenomenal Black Panther, and I had such high hopes to see that series continue on. I did see the Wakanda Forever movie. I'm not a fan of that movie. I probably will not watch another Black Panther movie. You know, but other than that, like we know Tony Stark is gone. We know that Captain America is
I was gonna say
gone.
Captain America,
You
yeah.
know, he's gone. You know, who the Black Widow, she's out there somewhere doing whatever.
Hmm.
Uh, you know,
Loki is
Loki
gone.
is gone. And I haven't watched the Loki series too, and I love Loki. He's one of my favorite
I
characters.
couldn't get into it.
Really?
Yeah, I couldn't get into it. I do like him a lot. But yeah, no, I agree with you. I feel like a lot of it's kind of like,
Yeah.
um,
And I mean,
but
like Thanos, like was sacrificing other characters that I really liked and stuff. I do enjoy Guardians of the Galaxy, but I probably
yeah.
again won't watch another of their movies, you
Well,
know.
you know what it is too is when they well, I mean, okay, so it's kind of like twofold. They brought everyone together and they made those movies really incredible. So then it's almost harder when you try to make singular movies about just like another Guardians of the Galaxy, which will probably be fine, but you had everyone together, which made it so compelling that you've almost overstimulated us that it's hard to go back to reset
Yeah.
it. Um, because so many of those people, they're so dynamic, but they're so dynamic all together that it's like incredible. And then it's like, well, now I don't want to just watch a movie about whatever, even though Thor movies are usually amazing.
Yeah.
I didn't actually watch Wakanda Forever. I feel like I wasn't ready because of Chadwick's loss. That was
Oh
very
yeah.
sad. So Banks, my cat, I got him I think around the time the first Black Panther came out, and I used to like call him when he was little. I used to call him Black Panther all the time. Also, he
Oh.
was kind of dopey, so I'd call him like Black, or I'd call him Brack Panther because he was
Cute.
kind of dopey. Um, but yeah, that was and it was a surprise too because none of us knew what was
Mhm.
happening with him, and it was so sad, and he was so
Yeah.
incredible in that part, and just
And he was just an incredible person in general. Like
that's what I heard.
like
Yeah,
he's one of the most kind and considerate people you could have ever met. And it's always the good people who are
I
like
know.
gone. But that movie it does pay homage to that character. Um, and I think that they did the best that they could do, considering that all of these people had to be on set after losing somebody so, important to them.
Yeah,
Um, but I just didn't necessarily love the story itself.
sure.
You know what I'm saying? And what happened at the end of that does not make me want to see another one.
I get it.
I mean, it's like, maybe, but maybe not.
I get
Um,
it.
I think too, like what you said, they oversaturated us with a lot. Also, like for most of us, we grew up watching the movies because they had like a 10-year span of giving
Oh
us
yeah,
each and every character's individual movie before in the middle giving us one Avengers movie. Then they gave us another Avengers movie sprinkled in with other singular movies again, adding in new characters. By the time we got to the last Avengers movie, we had every single person who
I
we've
know.
ever seen, Doctor Strange, all of them, anybody we've seen in this universe was in that movie. And then again, we lost a lot of these people. And then they lost momentum. And then what's crazy to me is that Robert Downey Jr. was Iron Man. To bring him back in 2026 as Doctor Damn Doom is insane to me. It's like, what? How?
I was I was curious about that too, and because
Yeah,
that big reveal, what was that, at
it
Comic-Con,
was
I
Comic
guess?
Con.
Yeah, and he came out and he just like dropped the hood, and everyone was like, oh, God. And it's like I was like, I have questions. How is this going to work? And I know he's like wearing a mask
Yeah.
and whatever, and I get that, but like he has one of those voices that's kind of distinctive that even if he's doing a character voice, like I feel like it's going to come through, but at the on the other hand, I'm like, it's happy. I'm glad he's still involved because when they've taken all of our people from us that we love so much, there's not really so much of a draw anymore. So it's like, well, when they're still connected in some way, like kind of wants makes you want to see it. I don't know. I don't know. But
Yeah, I mean, I guess they're putting it to the same thing like when they had that first Fantastic Four movie, and
those were
you know,
great.
but you had Chris Evans as the Human Torch in that movie, and he
Mm.
turns out to be Captain America later on in the same universe. So, but even
Well,
though they will say that that Fantastic Four movie was trash,
Deadpool addresses some of that,
oh,
which
does it?
I think that's one of the Deadpool and Wolverine really, I feel like, brought something back that we were missing. And Deadpool also shits all over the mess that has been made of Marvel, like blatantly. Um, and I think we needed that because sometimes when things don't work out, instead of just being like trying to sweep it under the rug, you have to be like, well, that was effed up.
Right.
And now we're going to try something different. So sometimes it's helpful, like that kind of transparency. You know, to
Which
make
is
light of
fair.
it a little bit, I think is
Yeah.
helpful, to be like, you know what, I messed up and it got really crazy and I'm sorry, but now we're gonna do better. So.
Yeah. And I mean, like, yeah, I'm to the point now where, like you said, I was force fed all those Avengers movies, all of that stuff prior to what is it, like phase three or whatever it is. They have several phases, but whatever phase we're in now, everything prior to that, I was all in. And
Right.
then you drop me off a cliff, and like I said, you know, unfortunately we lose people, and then you actually kill characters off that are interesting.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, and then you had another Doctor Strange movie that was okay. And then you had WandaVision where you thought other things were going to happen. And, you know, there was a lot going on. And Kevin
Yeah.
Feige, right? Because I think that was the person who was doing all this stuff, right?
Hmm.
He was very ambitious because he was telling people you don't have to watch certain shows in order to know certain things. But to be
Right.
quite honest, if you don't watch WandaVision, you don't know how the Scarlet Witch comes about. You don't
Right.
understand that. You don't even know where, you know, that whole origin comes from without that. So the next movie you watch, if you just all of a sudden see Wanda is no longer Wanda and Wanda might be somebody else, you know what I'm saying? You're going to be like, what happened? Because last thing I
Yeah.
watched, she was Wanda.
A lot of these things that are interwoven. Some of them you can watch without, but a lot of it, like I've seen before these kind of massive, almost like flow charts of like, you know, the timelines, right? Of
Mm-hmm.
all of the movies. And there's like Ant-Man fits in here and here. And I'm like, I don't need to see that. But then it's like, and then this, but this one happened before this. And then this is over here. And it's like, whoa. So, first of all, interesting for someone to create that kind of world and put that kind of thought into it for things to fit together. So, even when things can kind of stand alone, it doesn't mean that there's not eight other references to it in other movies and like these little
Exactly.
Easter eggs and things. So it's very complex. I will say the last Doctor Strange, which was a Sam Raimi production.
I
Sam
love
Ra
Sam Raimi,
Sam Raimi, Evil Dead, Bruce Campbell. Sam Raimi loves to work with Bruce Campbell. So I was very
which is why
pleased
he
to
was
see
in that movie.
Bruce Campbell. I wasn't expecting it, which was silly
Yeah.
of me because Sam Raimi loves to put Bruce Campbell in his movies. But I was like, oh my gosh. And then he was in the end credits as well. So don't forget to stay for the end credits. Um, but just a little goofy moment he had in the credits. But I always love to see him. Um, but yeah, it's weird. Like next they're gonna be like, now we're gonna give you Hawkeye 1 to 7. Like, no, no,
Which he was going to have a show, I think.
no. I'm sorry.
Well, I think that's what was going to happen until he had his accident, and then I don't think
Oh,
they were going to do that anymore.
which is the sad, oh
And then they
God.
gave us like the Falcon and whoever, and I didn't care about that either. Look, right now we were just going on a tangent, guys. So you know what?
Look,
Let
maybe this is right up your alley. Maybe you like horror movies and you're also into superheroes. And we are at our cores, a little bit nerdy too. So it's in there. Look, I have Care Bears behind me. You can't expect it to always be regular. You just and Mothman and on sitting on a haunted trunk, which I just thrifted. There it is right there.
yes, and
I was trying to point to it and I was like, "Mom."
I have horns on and a witch squishmallow in the background.
You're like,
So
and I'm wearing horns. Yeah. So, we're not gonna all do a split Marvel segment on every episode, but it just happened this time, and sometimes
yeah.
you gotta roll with the punches,
And I
okay?
mean, we watched the Disney movie, which still on trend with Disney. It is what
Oh
it
yeah.
is. But you know, the other thing too is we're sharing our opinions. And so it may not be completely factual. Obviously, you know, there are times where we're actually Googling things to make sure we're saying things that are factually
Yeah.
correct. But sometimes opinions are just opinions. So I don't
Oh
want
yeah.
anybody to feel like, oh my God, you're bastardizing this. It's just an opinion, y'all.
Yeah, no, I
Mhm.
never, and that's honestly that's something that irritates me when I speak with other friends of mine, especially lately about certain movies, and I'm not going to name any names, but I'm going to look into the camera right now. You know who you are. Um, it's always just an opinion. We're never stating anything as fact unless it's actual
Facts.
verified movie facts, but our
Yeah.
opinions are our own, and we are happy for you to have your own opinions. We're happy to talk about them.
Yeah. And
Um,
share your opinions down below.
Share your opinions. Always, we want to hear them. We like to hear other takes. I will not be swayed about the first about Halloween ends. I won't. Stop
No.
trying. Stop trying. Just gonna say that. Um, but yeah,
I
hopefully
feel
this
like I
was.
know who that's for.
You know who it's for, and he knows too. I'll send him
Well,
the timestamp of this part in the maybe one day we'll have um a
we'll have
segment
a
where
guess.
we have like a celebrity death match type of none of us are celebrities, right? We'll do like a celebrity death match of like vastly different opinions about loving and hating a movie, and we'll just
Oh yeah.
tear each other apart.
I would
Maybe.
I would I would actually welcome having that type of discourse because I think it's fun to like share your opinions and
Oh
share
yeah,
why and to like for someone to have a very strong different opinion. It's like
right.
that's dope. I love it. And here's why I feel how I feel. And we can just talk about it. I would love that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So bring on the
If that's
celebrity
something
death
you
match.
guys would be interested in seeing or hearing, at the end of the day, we're going to decide whether you like it or not. But if you would like to see it, or you have any other ideas about content you would like to see, we always know where we're planning to go. But maybe you see something we don't see. Maybe you have an idea we don't have. Share it. Can't hurt,
True.
right?
True. Yep.
Share
Well,
it.
with that being said, we were going to wrap it up. Tell me your bloody axe rating for Hocus
Well,
Pocus.
I wish I had. I wish I had a machete. I would give you a bloody machete today because for my Jason Halloween ensemble, which is just this mask here. So, so I don't know. Like I love this movie. It's a staple. It's nostalgic. It's whatever. It's one of my all times, but like not in the way that like I love it so much. It's just been such a part of my life. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like I want to give it, oh my God. I feel the most pressure with this one of like anyone we've ever done.
Really?
I do because it's like when I was in first or second grade, I'm like, this is a 12, right? But now as an adult, I'm like, because there's a lot of movies that I would put on instead, you know?
Yeah.
So I want to give it, oh, one of my cats is roaming in the background. Um, I want to give it like a 7.5, I think. Because I love it. Don't get me wrong, but it's just like it is a kid's movie at the end of the day. But I love Bette Midler. I love everyone involved. I love Doug Jones. You know I'm bad with
Yes.
names. Okay.
Doug Jones.
Um, it's Salem, Massachusetts. No, there's so much Salem, Massachusetts. I gotta give it an 8. We're gonna game time switcheroo, like you said. I'm gonna give it an 8. Um, and also the fact that they didn't portray any witches as being burned. They did historically accurately execute their witches in the beginning of the movie. So 8. I'm going to stay firm at 8. Okay. That's it. I'm going to stop talking
Mm,
about it.
all right. So for me, I don't have that same like child whimsy feeling.
Sure.
Um, I think it's a good movie. I think it's a good Halloween movie. It's one of those one time a year when you're having a good time with friends, you put it on in the background and maybe you're carving pumpkins or handing out
Yes.
candy to the kids or something like that.
Or eating it yourself.
Facts. So for all of that, I think that the score is fair. I think also, like I always talk about technical aspects of the movie. I think the movie was shot very well. I love the musical scenes. I love how they walk in sync together.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
I do love all the accurate, locations and the respect that they gave to Salem as well. Um, and yeah, there are issues with character development. I don't care about any of those kids. The only kid I actually cared about was Binks, was Thackeray. And I started to care for Danny because Thackeray cared for Danny. So, I really wasn't rooting for anybody throughout this movie except for Binks. So, with all
I
that
was
said,
rooting for Billy. Like,
yeah, I was
mm.
waiting for a Billy from Saul to ride in on a tricycle.
I
So,
wait before you say your score. When you said that before, like when we were in the cemetery scene, you were like, "Yeah," and then Billy. I literally was then picturing them like, like he just rode
there
into the sea.
there was a point throughout this movie that when I said Billy, I was talking about the other Billy, and then I was like, wait, wrong Billy. But the name is the same, so I just rolled with it. It's like,
You
yeah,
just superimposed him into the movie, which I
yeah.
love. Yes.
So, I'm going to give this movie a 5. And the rating is lower for me because of those disgusting adult themes that
Sure.
I just can't get past. Um, but a 5 for me is still good. I mean,
Hmm.
just, there's nothing wrong with being a 5.
They're
Um,
subjective scales.
yeah, and I think, I think that this again, this is a solid movie that you can put on at Halloween. Would I watch it any other time? No. Would I watch Hocus Pocus 2 again ever? Hell no. Um, the Hocus Pocus 2 falls into the Halloween ends category for me.
I think I would watch it one more time. Like, I think I would like to watch them back to back. That would be
That would be interesting.
the thing I would think to do, but I don't necessarily want to watch it
No. In
by
fact,
itself.
I won't put it in Halloween Ends because Halloween Ends is a movie that I think is garbage. It's just dumpster fire trash. It falls into the Conjuring the Devil Made Me Do It territory, which if you've seen that
Oh,
episode, it is a movie that we don't dislike, but we never want to watch it again. So
I don't love it, if we're
yeah.
being fair. Like,
Yeah.
I don't
Is
love it. I don't
yeah,
hate it.
right.
I don't especially like it, but it exists.
Yeah.
I'll say that.
And that's how I feel about Hocus Pocus too. It's like
Yeah.
I don't hate it, I don't love it. It exists and it's there, and I'm happy to never watch it again. So
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
that.
I
But
get that.
so I guess that's what it is. We have a 7.5. You said eight, right? Eight and a
I
five.
did, but it's like, but no, I'm gonna stay with 8. I'm gonna stay and a 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there we have it. So do you have anything else to add to this lovely episode that went on such a tangent today? And
We went
I'm
on
so happy about
a
it.
wild tangent. And next time we're gonna watch Dinosaur Hotel. No, I'm just
Yeah.
kidding. Uh, um, I'm glad. No, just I'm glad that we, were able to give you all these bonus episodes for spooky season. It was a labor of love for us. Even though it was
Yes.
a lot of work. It was a lot of work, but we did it for you,
Yes.
and we did it for us, and did it for Jason. So no, I'm just glad that you guys joined us. I hope you had a nice time with us this month. We are going to keep it going through the holidays with maybe some more horror holiday themed movies. Maybe we're going to see what happens, but just, not at this frequency. But we're gonna
Yes.
keep it going. But talk to us. Tell us what you like, what you're looking for, what else you want to see. But those are my only thoughts. What about you? Anything?
No, I think that you summed it up beautifully. I mean, this was our labor of love to make sure that every single week in October you had another spooky episode from us. And so, hopefully you did enjoy them. If you are not sure what movies those are, um, I'm going to work backwards so I think I do everything correctly. So we have this movie, which you are watching now. Happy Halloween. Our movie from last week was the movie Halloween. The movie prior to that was 13 Ghosts. The movie prior to that was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The movie
Ugh.
prior the movie prior to that was what?
Saw.
Saw. Oh, how could I forget Billy? Um, and yeah, I think that that pretty much sums up our whole entire month of October.
I
So
think so.
yeah, so hopefully you enjoyed one or two of those, maybe more.
I hope you
Um,
enjoyed all of them.
yeah, and so and if
Please.
you're interested in our thoughts on those movies, please go back and watch them. Even we had a couple in September. We had some bonus episodes in September too. We had the original Crow, and we also had Friday the 13th on Friday the 13th. So, we put a lot of effort into these movies that I just
Yeah.
named. We put a lot of time into doing these for you. And so hopefully, you love them as much as we loved making them for you. So,
And keep coming back.
yeah.
We have
So,
a lot more coming.
yeah, we do. So, with that said, that's going to wrap up another eerie episode with the horror ghouls. And we do hope you enjoyed our enchanting dive into the magical mayhem of Hocus Pocus and our side dive into the world of Marvel superhero movies. So, if the spooky spectacle of the Sanderson sisters has cast a spell on you, or if you have your own chilling theories or other horror flicks you'd like us to explore, please reach out to us on YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram at The Horror Ghouls. Make sure to follow and subscribe so you never miss an episode. New horrors drop at least once a month, but
If
you
not
might get
more.
more. Right. And so trust us with that. You won't want to miss what might be lurking in the shadows.
Mm.
So until next time, stay spooky, keep your cauldrons bubbling, and remember, The witching hour is always just around the corner.
Mm.
Happy Halloween, everybody.
Happy Halloween.
Yep.
See you next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.